All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. Okay, it's Friday night. Welcome. I see Denise popped in over on YouTube and on Facebook. Welcome. I see Rick there. Share this out. Get everybody else in here. How's everybody doing? It's Friday night. Time for the law of one, right? So hold on, let me pull these banners down, or this overlay down here from the beginning of the show. There we go. Put myself up into full screen here. There we go. Okay. So yeah, it's a little crazy getting ready to go live, right? Yeah, morning, Rick. He's in Australia. It's 3 p.m. my time. It's I think 7 or 8, depending on where he's at. He's in Uluru, so you're in almost the middle of Australia. So I think it's 7 in the morning for you. Could be 6 because of our weird time change that we do over here in America. So it's in the AM tomorrow in the AM for Rick over there in Australia at Uluru. So welcome. Okay, so like I said, share this out, get everybody in here, start tagging people, get them in here. If you don't say anything in the chat, guys, I don't know you're here, right? So if you don't talk and say hello, I don't know you're here. Same thing with those of you that are over there on. And Denise went over there too. So Denise made sure to pop in on and say something on Instagram, YouTube, and on Facebook. Thank you, Denise. I love you, girl. That's good stuff right there. So yeah, so anybody who's on Instagram, if you say something over there on the live, I can't see it unless I change out of the studio and go over there because I still haven't gotten time to figure out how to get that chat to come into the StreamYard chat. Because I can do that with everything else. I just give it permission, but for some reason, I haven't figured that one out yet, and I've been too busy to really try it. So I apologize, but I do check periodically. So if you pop in over there on Instagram and say something, I will, like I just did, go back over there and take a look. So it's 8. Okay, 8:30. So you're like in the middle because it's 3:03 here, so it was 8:32. So it was 3:02 when you said that. So because you're in the middle there, you're at a 30-minute window instead of being at an exact hour. Our time zones are all exact hours. But if you're so the weird thing is that if you're in between, like at the time zone, we don't change the time zone in this country for that getting next to the next hour. So you guys do. So like it's at the half hour there. So you guys are more on real time there than the United States. Because as far as I know, when you're in a time zone, you're in the zone. And literally, if you step across, it's 1 hour difference. So you can literally be standing on the line. I've done that. I went to California and Arizona. On the line, there's a Hoover Dam down here in Southern California, or maybe it was Nevada and Arizona. Either way, you stand on the line, or the Florida-Georgia line, stand on the line. Well, those two are north-south, so it's not a good example. But you stand on the line and you're in one state, half your body's in one state, half your body's in the other, and half your body's in one time zone and half your body's in the other time zone. So it's literally, it's not, it doesn't blend. It just stops dead, and then that's the next hour. So you step across and it's an hour later. And your cell phone, as soon as it pings a cell tower, will update to an hour time change, automatic. And then you go walk back across, and it's an hour behind. So I like the way Australia does it better, because I'm sure that there's some people that are 45 and some people that are 30 and some people that are on the hour. So I think that's kind of cool, right? East to west is 2 hours. Central is 1.5. Oh, okay. So you guys do that. And then west is 0.5 from east. So yeah, okay. So you guys you guys have still chopped it up, even if it's done in increments like that of a 30-minute increments, better than America. Man, America is hour, all the way across. So we have west, then we have mountain, central, and then east, and those are all hour. And then there's some places where they don't do the time change. I was in Arizona. And in Arizona, the south of Arizona does not do the time change. Only the people up above the rim do the time change. And we call it that because it's a mountain range that goes up like 2 miles high from the desert floor, which is already like 3,000 feet up. So then it goes up another couple thousand, more than a mile high. So the people up north do the time change with the state of California, but the people in the south don't. Everything just stays the way it is, and things on television just change. 8 o'clock starts at 7 o'clock when there's a time change, and then it goes back to 8 o'clock when there's time change, when everybody else catches back up by changing their they're springing forward. They catch back up after they fell back, right? So yeah, that's just crazy. Okay, Joanna, welcome. Jerry, welcome. I see other people are starting to talk in the chat. Hi, guys. Share this out, like I said. So the time change is kind of weird here in the United States because it's just like the international dateline. It's like, well, then there's Hawaii. So I'm wrong about that. That was the continental U.S. because Hawaii is like 2 hours, an hour or 2 hours behind, maybe even 3, because I think they're almost 3,000 miles out away from the coast of California, which would make them 3 hours. I'm not sure what the Hawaiian time is. I should ask friends that are over there. But so Hawaii is on this side of the prime meridian, but they're behind California. Alaska and Hawaii, I think, are in the same time zone. So the United States truly has 5 time zones because they have East, Central, Mountain, Pacific, and then whatever that Islander time zone is for the other people. I think it's called Pacific Islander time, Pacific Island time. Don't quote me on that. Anybody that's out there in Hawaii or out there in Alaska, let me know what your time zones are. Alaska, I don't think, is still in the same Pacific time zone because they're pretty far out. They would literally be lined up with Hawaii and the like. So anyway, welcome. And how do you say that? Is it Rada? Rada, is that how you say that? First name, welcome. Okay, so we're on session 66, I think. I'll play it here in a second. I know that we're on question 5. I think that's where we ended last week. And Dawn is asking Ra about Carla being under attack psychically, and asked if the entity that is attacking Carla, trying to stop Carla from communicating to Ra, is part of the Orion Confederation, the Orion Crusaders. And Ra had answered with yes. And then Dawn asked if that entity was in the 5th dimension, and that's why I rewound to at least that question. We just finished that question, what I'm telling you about, and we're going to go into the next question talking about that, because that's the temporal war. And I wanted to kind of explain that if you're new to this and you're new to the temporal war and you don't know what's happening there, that gets confusing, because when you look up the temporal war, people say time, and that's it. It's more like Doctor Who, which was designed by a wanderer. If you ever watch that old science fiction novel series, I say old, it's still currently being aired. It's the longest running television series on the planet. It's been running since, I think we talked about it was 1963 when it first started. It's been on the air. They didn't think they took it off for like a half a year once. So it wasn't even a real full season. And then they started it back up, and that happened in the mid to late 70s. Just temporarily, they stopped doing it because they ran out of money, because they were still doing it cheap as it was. They ran out of some money, and then they started doing it. They got some funding and started it right back up. So one season is like a half season, but it's been on the air since 1963, and it's still currently being aired in the UK. And then we get the reruns here in the United States. That's how I grew up watching it, was we were watching the reruns. So we always got it a couple years behind the lives over there. So that entire series is about the Time Lords and the Temporal War, and the Doctor, who is a rogue. But then I'm not going to give you any spoiler alerts, because he's a rogue Gallifreyan from Gallifrey, a Time Lord, and he's moving throughout time, but he's also moving throughout dimensional existence as well. And he's correcting some of the problems that are happening in time that evil Time Lords are also messing with, but other people besides the Time Lords. Time Lords are supposed to be the keepers of the time in the universe and trying to keep the universe intact. But then there's people that are trying to destroy it, and then people that are conquering people, but also using time time travel to attack different people, and mostly it ends up, the Earth ends up the center of everything because, it's written by us humans. So a lot takes place here on Earth, and but that show, it was written by a wanderer because it's so actually a little more accurate to what's actually going on than anyone realized for a long time, and people are starting to kind of wake up to that, and they're looking at that show differently, even though it's campy and the scripts are made up. The premise of the entire idea of what's happening is actually what's going on in the world and the universe, especially for a second, third, fourth, fifth dimension, and the temporal war. So the temporal war isn't just a war that's happening in time. It's happening in space as well. So it's time and space. So it's the actual continuum. And that's the only thing. Even the Matrix never talked about that. So there is no other television series that talks about that in any way except for Doctor Who. So if you can watch some of the episodes of that just to kind of get the gist, because it is campy. It's done in the style, cheap style of in the tradition of sci-fi, the way it was in the 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's still done that way. They don't spend a ton of money on, like Hollywood over here in the United States. Everything is technology these days. In fact, they're doing it so much they're trying to replace the humans now from Hollywood, and the actors and the writers and the script writers and all these people have been suing and going on strike to keep them from doing that, because they're literally trying to get AI to make movies, and so they can cut humans out because they don't have to pay them the way they have to pay humans $100 million a movie, or $20 million, $50 million a movie, plus royalties. They can just cut them out. And that's what they're trying to do over here, because it's all technology. Any movie that you watch is everyone in America has gotten used to bells and whistles and technology in the movies, and lights and sounds and all of this stuff. And so most people won't watch the Doctor Who because it's very campy to people. They're like, this is because the storyline in sci-fi was the important thing. It wasn't the budget. The budget didn't matter if it was cheesy. It was the whole story that they were trying to tell you. And then so they would throw in some money because they didn't want to do it, completely zero budget. But they also wanted to not end up like Hollywood. So they kept things in the tradition. And the English were very a lot of people in England, like say the Monty Python and their Flying Circus, that television series that was in the late 60s and early 70s. Over there, they did the same thing with that style. There was a lot of people over in Europe that kind of like that, in America too. So if you're a sci-fi fan, true to sci-fi, you'll like that. But if you're a sci-fi fan that you grew up in the United States and you're under the age of 35, you would have never seen sci-fi in its original form. Even Star Trek was a little more advanced with money. It was still campy if you go back and watch that in the 60s as well, technology-wise. But by the 80s, the sci-fi in the United States became, pretty much technology-driven and computer-driven. As soon as computers hit the market, they went all bells and whistles, and the technology grew. It's not a bad thing. There's a place for it, but you can't call that stuff science fiction anymore, because now it's just a mainstream Hollywood movie. It's no different than anything else. They're trying to make you believe that universe exists. And so it's not, the story isn't the important thing. People go and watch a movie for the technology now, and they'll say if its technology isn't perfect, they'll say the movie sucked. They won't even know what happens in the movie. Won't even pay attention to the plot, because they're too busy going, wow, that was a great explosion, man. That looks real. Like they know what an explosion actually looks like. So it's become so realistic when people in real life end up in a situation where there's gunfire or whatever, the people are not used to the actual events, and they don't think it's real, because gunshots don't sound the way they do in movies. Gunshots sound like a firecracker going off. It doesn't sound like it does in the movie. And you should watch somebody like Reese. If he's here, he could tell you that, because he does target shooting, Old West, garb and the whole nines. And he does that, and he's filmed it. And so when people are doing that, you think they're using blanks or a pop gun when you hear the bullets until you see them firing the bullets, unless it's a higher caliber. And higher caliber is louder. I remember my father had a 308 Alpine sniper rifle, and I went with him to the firing range. It was the loudest gun recoil that I had ever heard in my life. And he didn't have a second pair of goggles or earmuffs, so I had to go and sit in the car because it was so loud. It was hurting my ears. And but that was a 50 caliber. That's why, right? It was a 50 caliber sniper rifle. That was loud. So, but regular handguns on television, they sound like hand cannons, and in real life, they're just pop, 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 pop. They're not very loud. So when people hear them in real life, they don't realize the danger, and they look around because they'll hear stuff. People who are used to hearing actual gunshots, you'll see them start to scatter because they know what real gunshots sound like. If you've never had a gun fired even at you or near you or around you, it just sounds like a firecracker. Some firecrackers are louder. An M80 is louder than most guns that fire off. So people don't notice that. So that's campy. Getting back to the temporal war, that's campy compared to today's technology. But the storyline is about the temporal war, and the temporal war is what Raw is talking about here. I know I went into a lot of details with all of that, but you'll get that as we go here. So I'm trying to give you an example of somebody who was a wanderer who created a show. I never met the person who created that show, but knowing what I know, watching that show, I'm like, the stories, individual stories were created, but the overall premise and overall backstory of what's happening is actually what's actually happening. So that's kind of freaky that they are aware of that. So they have all these backstories and long running side stories that are throughout the entire series since 1963, and that's the temporal war. Okay, so a lot of people don't understand what that is. Deborah, welcome. A lot of people don't understand what that is, and so Raw's actually talking about that here. Dawn asked the question, we know that Carla is under a psychic attack. Is this person part of the Orion Crusaders, the Orion Confederation of Crusaders? And is this entity in the fifth dimension, not the third, in the fifth density? And what is it that person is using? This is the question that we're going to be moving into. What is it that person is using to project their self and their energy into the third dimension, cross dimension from the fifth, cross the fourth, and cross into the third dimension to attack Carla? And this is what Raw is addressing currently, and I believe that's the next question that we're going to ask, and that's where we left off last week. So I wanted to give you that backstory, what we're talking about, and why we're so that you will understand it right here, especially if you didn't tune in last week and you don't know where we are in this conversation. So we're on session 66, question number 5, I believe. We'll find out right here. Okay, so let me go ahead and do it, and I'll start this, and you guys let me know if you can hear it okay. I'll do a sound check, and we'll let this start, okay? So let's start.
67.5 questioner, would you rather not give me information as to the specifics of my statement?
67, sorry. Session 67, question 5.
Ra, I am Ra. We did not perceive a query in further detail. Please re-question. 67.6 questioner, which body, with respect to the colors, does the entity use to travel to us? Ra, I am Ra. This query is not particularly simple to answer due to the transdimensional nature, not only of space/time to time/space, but from density to density. The time/space light or fifth density body is used while the space/time fifth density body remains in fifth density.
So, yeah, right. Okay. So Denise is answering that. So he wasn't actually called Doctor Who. No one knew his name because he never answered that question. He just went by the doctor. And so it was called Doctor Who because people always said that, right? So, yeah. And so the symbols, right? Denise is obviously a fan, right? Rick, it was all symbols, D3, pound, or is that, pound like the sterling times 2. So the people would say, Doctor Who? right? And so what that means is delta cubed sigma sigma squared, right? Or sigma times squared, because that's outside this dimension. That's the fifth dimension. That's funny. I didn't know, Denise, that you were a fan. So he was called Doctor Who because people didn't understand what that mathematical equation meant. And that was because he was a Time Lord. That was actually the mathematical equation of the symbol of Gallifrey, of the Time Lords, which I have posted, by the way. If you go to my reels and find the one that has the actress and actor that were currently on stage doing Mary Poppins, I actually said the Temporal War and played it, and you hear the introductory, the credits, opening and closing credits of the television series playing, and then it shows you the different insignias of the different Time Lords, including the one that they assigned to Mary Poppins, who they claim, since that movie came out, the UK claims that she was in fact a Time Lord, and that's why she was able to do the things that she did and never age, and going throughout time and flying with her little umbrella, to explain some of the things that she was able to do, because she went cross-dimensional. They were able to literally, because of her, jump into, if you remember in the movie, they're drawing on chalk, and she was able to have them jump into that reality and be in that cartoon. And people were saying that was just their imagination, but that wasn't what was happening. She was moving in and out of these events and transporting people to that reality in the movie, but they never explained any of it. So the makers of Doctor Who assigned her own Gallifreyan insignia for her family. And I show you that in that, never saying a word, because it was for the fans. And I posted that thing probably 6 months ago or something. I don't remember when I posted it exactly, but it's in my reels. If you go back far enough, you'll see it, because I have a picture of the TARDIS, which that also is the same spatial differential that Denise is talking about there for Doctor Who, where the TARDIS is a police box. So it's literally the size of an American phone booth. But it's a police box where it was their phone communication, and you'd have to have a key, and you open it up, and you walked in and closed the door, and they could do have office work and do stuff in there, and nobody could see them, and they can get on the phone. So it's like literally just a 4 foot by 4 foot square, 7 foot tall. When you unlock that and open that door and you walk in, there's another door. So you walk in, and it's like an entryway. You walk into that specific police box, which is the TARDIS, which is a time machine. And when you open the door, you walk in, there's another door. You close that door, open that other door. When you open that door, you walk inside, and it's a complete mansion. This spaceship is the size of bigger than an aircraft carrier on the inside. And it has many levels, probably 30, 40 levels. And it's got, the kitchen, dining rooms, bedrooms, all kinds of halls, all kinds of stuff that's on the inside. And literally you could walk out and walk around it, and it's 4 foot by 4 foot square. And because it exists outside of this reality, outside of the third dimension, it actually exists in the fourth and fifth dimension concurrently. And when you go to the bridge, there's a device there which literally allows you to go anywhere in time, including the future, the past, and also anywhere outside of time into different realities as well. But you have to know where you're going. And the computer and the machine itself is sentient and actually is thinking, and that's the only way that it can keep track of the universe itself. So it was a spatial differential that people didn't understand, and so his name was right. I didn't know that, Denise. You and I share a passion with all of that. I grew up watching all the British shows. I was brought up very European, even though I was brought up in America because my family's European. Peter laughs about that because my family's Irish. I watched all the Irish television shows and all the English television shows my whole life. More than I watched American shows, but we also did watch American shows. So I grew up watching Benny Hill and all that stuff, right? And Monty Python and what's his name? Steve Allen, the comedian, the Irish comedian with one who was missing his middle finger and smoked a cigarette and drank whiskey while he was telling jokes. So that's funny. I didn't know that. We never talked about that, you and I. We'll have to talk because I bet you know everything about Doctor Who like I do. So literally, his name, you're the first person I actually know that knew the answer to that. So his name is a spatial differential that is outside of our time. For instance, the Doctor is married to a woman who's going the opposite direction in time. Okay. So they have a little black book each one of them has, and when they meet, they look at in the book to find the time that they're in currently to find out what each knows because they're going in different directions in time. So when the Doctor first met his wife, he didn't remember her because he had never met her before, and she has already been married to him for 10 years or 15 years. But he doesn't know that, and she knows that. The Doctor also ends up working with his own daughter who doesn't know she's his daughter, and he doesn't know that she's his daughter, but his wife knows that he's the daughter. And then eventually they meet up in a different time where he knows it's his daughter, but the daughter doesn't know that she's the daughter, and the wife doesn't know that that's the daughter, but the husband does. So it gets really complicated when you're traveling through time. So they have these little books to find out where they are. And that way they can each figure out what the other person does or doesn't know. It gets really crazy. I love that his wife's character. And for a long time, then eventually she knew that was her father, and that was all crazy too. And now the Doctor's a female. She's been a woman now for, I don't know, close to 8 years or almost 10 years now. Because the Doctor, if the physical body dies, the Doctor's spirit regenerates the physical body into a new physical body because he's immortal, because he's the Time Lord. So he doesn't die. So the physical body regenerates to a new physical body. When that old body dies, it literally transforms into a new one. But the problem is he's veiled when that happens. So he wakes up and he knows some things, but he has most of his memory is wiped, and it takes him a while for him to unscramble his molecules and remember who he is. And then he's running around instinctively doing things, and the TARDIS is taking him places that he doesn't know aware of until he becomes unveiled again, and then knows who he is and what he's about and what he's doing. So he gets into trouble because he runs into somebody who's trying to kill him that he doesn't remember, but they know who he is and they're mad at him. And he's like, who are these people? And the people around him, if they weren't around, they don't know why either. And so it's a really good TV series because of all that. And so they're on like the 12th or 13th Doctor now, because whenever they change a new Doctor, the actor can't finish, or the actor wants to move on, or the contract's up and they want to get another actor or actress. They kill the character off and have them regenerate into a new person. So it's actually really cool. And then having them veil them is also really cool. So the temporal war, there's some of that goes on outside of the time and space, outside of that dimension in the fourth and fifth dimension. And this is what we're talking about here. So let me go ahead and continue with that now that I've exhausted that talking about Doctor Who. But it's the only representation that I have found that is anywhere near accurate to the actual temporal war that's going on is that television series. That might be one of the reasons why it's so popular, because it's targeting wanderers. So anybody who is a sci-fi fan that is a wanderer, they immediately fall in love with that character and that premise of that entire show very quickly, because there's something about it that feels right. And I noticed that when I started watching it, I was like, this has got to be somebody who's awake and understands what's going on. I started watching the show more and more and more and more. And I was like, the writers somebody knows what's going on in the universe. So they were way ahead of the time. They made Star Wars, the Star Wars movies and their plot line look simple. Okay. If you ever saw or read the books, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That was another one, and eventually they made the movie out of it, the miniseries, a movie out of it. But if you ever read that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and then saw the movies, again, super complicated storyline of inside and outside of time, with the temporal war going on even in that. So the English have been way ahead of the curve, 30 years, 40 years ahead of the curve with that, right? Yeah, Mrs. Brown, right? Yeah, Dave Allen. Love Dave Allen. I said Steve Allen, didn't I? Love Dave Allen. Dave Allen was funny. So thank you, Rick, because I said Steve Allen. I meant Dave Allen, right? So, yeah, right. Joanne said, I watched Doctor Who, but it didn't grasp me. Well, that's okay, because if you're not a sci-fi fan in the looking at campiness, that you'll go, okay, I'm out of here because this is just too crazy, right? Because it's cheap. The aliens are cheap looking. It's not so quickly. If you're not involving yourself in the storyline, the campiness of the TV series drives people away. In the Men in Black, they did that in Men in Black in the second one, where they showed these campy videos that were supposed to be like, Twilight Zone or something, and they were super cheap done, but the videos that were made were actual history. And you saw that in that series when they were watching it, that it was the truth. It was made, and Jay was trying to help Kay get his memory back and figure out why he didn't remember what was going on when they needed his memory, and he had wiped his own memory so he wouldn't be able to give away the memory. And now he was trying to wake up, and so he went and was following clues. He left himself, and it took him to a video store, and they pull out these old videos that were super campy sci-fi, and he was watching them and realizing it was the truth, and it was waking up his memory. So I liked that they did that in Men in Black, because Men in Black was kind of a little bit out there as well with the idea of cross-dimensional things that people are unaware of. All right, so let's continue here.
The assumption that the consciousness is projected thereby is correct.
Oh, hi, Jamie. Jamie popped in and said hi, and I didn't see that until I put my glasses on. Welcome. Okay, let's continue.
Correct. The assumption that this conscious vehicle attached to the space/time fifth density physical complex is that vehicle which works in this particular service is correct. 67.7 Questioner. I undoubtedly will ask several very uninformed and poor questions. However, I was trying to understand certain concepts having to do with the illusion, I shall say, of the polarization that seems to exist at certain density levels in the creation, and how can the mechanism of interaction of consciousness. It is a very difficult subject for me, and therefore I ask your forgiveness for my poor questions, but it seems to me that the fifth density entity is attracted in some way to our group by the polarization of this group, which acts somehow as a beacon to the entity. Am I correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is, in substance, correct, but the efforts of this entity are put forward only reluctantly. The usual attempts upon positively oriented entities or groups of entities are made, as we have said, by minions of the fifth density Orion leaders. These are fourth density. The normal gambit of such fourth density attack is the tempting of the entity or group of entities away from total polarization towards service to others and toward the aggrandizement of self or of social organizations with which the self identifies. In the case of this particular group, each was given a full range of temptations to cease being of service to each other and to the one infinite creator.
Yeah, right. So let me deal with what Joanne said. She said, spot on, the Daleks. They put me off, right? Because they looked like, like a bucket turned upside down. And then they had that raspy sounding voice. They were actually cybernetic organisms. They had a human brain inside that, so they were cyborgs, and so they were literally a brain controlling that body that rolled around in that what looked like a trash can turned upside down, but they were all evil. They were all in service to self, and they did that so that they could sustain their lives longer. And then they started creating more of them and stealing people and creating them. They showed you that in one of the episodes where they were kidnapping humans and then turning them in. So were the other ones too. The Cybermen were doing the same thing. They were robots, that were like 6 to 8 feet tall robots that were also had a human brain, and they were doing the same thing. They were stealing humans and turning them into robots in different places in the universe, which kind of pissed off the Time Lords, so that they were going after both of those races. So they were kind of at war with them. But the Daleks were, if you saw them first, I could see why you would watch Doctor Who and go, all right, I'm out of here, because the Daleks were annoying, even to those who were sci-fi fans. But they played a very, very pivotal part in that entire timeline. I don't want to give that away for anybody who hasn't ever seen all of the episodes. Even the Cybermen did too. That's why I brought them up. Those two specific races in their changed the course of human history and the universe itself. So Penny, welcome. So that was but yeah, if you were going to get annoyed with anybody, any character from anywhere in Doctor Who, it would be the Daleks. They're probably the most annoying character, and most people who see that. If you see an episode with the Daleks in your first 2 or 3 episodes, you probably won't watch Doctor Who again. If you don't see them, but after 10 or 12 episodes, you may go, oh wow, okay, they suck, but let's move on. But yeah, they're just like pure evil. They're just downright evil, and they've been scattered throughout the universe, throughout time, and by the Doctor, and they're pissed at the Doctor, and so they're constantly trying to hunt him down. But the Doctor had everybody pissed at him at one point or another, right? He even had the human race try to kill him a few times. So, and the Gallifreyans, the Time Lords. So he was a complete independent, fighting against the universe to try and save the universe. All right, let's continue. So yeah, that's funny. I can see why if you sci-fi fan. So let's continue. So now Dawn was asking, and then I'll get back on point here and we'll continue. Dawn was asking about what was it that this fifth density entity, how was that person attracted to them in third density, to identify them and to come into this existence and project itself to try and do harm to Carla, if not kill her. And Ra just answered with, truly, it was a fourth dimensional entity that was working for the Orion the Orion Crusaders, the Orion Confederation, and was able to track them and then give that information psychically to the fifth dimensional assassin who's trying to do damage, because there's also a fourth dimensional assassin that's also trying to kill Carla. And in the third dimension, that didn't actually get to play out because it was third dimension, and they were actually, there's no third dimensional wanderers here. You might find 1 or 2, but very rare, very, very rare, because they don't want to give up all of their stuff to come in, not even walk-ins, because they don't want to give up the what's the word I'm looking for? They don't want to give up the power, the fame, the glory, the power that they have in moving up the station that they have when they move out of third dimension into the fourth dimension. They don't want to give any of that up to come back to this place. So only people in service to others will sacrifice their own existence and their ascension to come back down to a third dimensional planet and come here or anywhere else that's third dimensional as a wanderer and come in legally to help the population of the planet. People who are in service to self won't help anybody here. Why would they come after leaving here, even consider coming back down here? They try to do everything across dimension. That's why the temporal war happens, because they do things cross-dimensional. Dale, welcome. They do things cross-dimensional because they want to stay in the position that they're in the fourth dimension or the fifth, to keep that. They don't want to come back down here because they could get, they get stuck here and get lost with everybody else. They have to do it all over again to get up there. So they will not sacrifice themselves because they don't care about that. But they will try to use their abilities cross-dimensional to affect people here, and if not assassinate people here, to stifle them from doing what they're doing. That's the real temporal war. So it's not just a war throughout time, but it's the war throughout time and space but it's a war throughout dimension, and between the third, the fourth, and the fifth. And it gets less and less as they move up, because the more evil that these people become, the less they want to even get involved. So it's rare in the fifth alone, and there's no one from the sixth on the side of the in service to self that comes back here, period. And then the population is probably 0.1% in the fifth that will even stay there and try to work on things here. And then the fourth is a little bit more, and the third, of course, because it's third dimensional. 14% of the population here is in fact evil. They are in fact self-serving, narcissistic. Okay, let's continue. So literally, Ra was answering Dawn when he was asking what is it that they were, attracted to. Was it this assassin from the fifth dimension? And Ra was saying, no, it was a fourth dimensional assassin that's closer to the third dimension that was able to identify the signal that is Carla and give that to the fifth dimensional being. Let's continue.
Each entity declined these choices and instead continued with no significant deviations from the desire for a purely other self-service orientation. At this point, one of the fifth density entities overseeing such detuning processes determined that it would be necessary to terminate the group by what you might call magical means, as you understand ritual magic. We have previously discussed the potential for the removal of one of this group by such attack and have noted that by far the most vulnerable is the instrument due to its pre-incarnative physical complex distortions. 67.8 Questioner. In order for this group to be fully in service to the Creator, since we recognize this fifth density entity as the Creator, we must also attempt to serve, in any way we can, this entity. Is it possible for you to communicate to us the desires of this entity, if there are any, in addition to simply ceasing the reception and dissemination of that which you provide for us?
Okay, before we go further, Joanne asked, so the question is, what did Carla need to do to protect herself? That question Dawn asked several times early on, many times, and they probably will still ask. They'll probably ask it here again. The truth is that the best thing that you can do to protect yourself is to greet any evil with the love and light of the infinite Creator. That sounds, for people who hate people who are, I hate those people who are love and light. Can't stand them. That's somebody who's self-serving and their true colors are coming out. Anybody that looks at somebody who is loving and caring and hates them for it or gets annoyed by them, it's because that person is not as awake as they think they are. Okay? They have ego problems, and their ego is saying, I hate that person. That person's too happy. Right? So that's someone who's living in the lower three chakras. Even if they think they're awake and they're partially unveiled, you're still kind of stuck in the bottom three chakras, because if you didn't, your entire existence would be exactly what Ra just said. Okay? Ra just said, we identify this fifth dimensional evil being who's trying to kill Carla as the one true Creator. Okay? So fourth dimensional ideology puts you into that place of everything there is no right and wrong. There just is experience. This is an ecosystem that is the Vesica Pisces, the yin and the yang. This is an ecosystem that's perfect. So people that are evil, no matter how evil they are, no matter what they're doing, it serves the all. Example of that is COVID was a lockdown that we now know, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, doesn't matter. History will play this out, was created by evil people and unleashed onto the planet on purpose so that they could lock down people and gain control and take control of most countries around the world and start moving them towards a communist, not just a socialist ideology, but a communist ideology where these oligarchs rule and that they're in charge and everybody is losing their rights. That happened. That happened during COVID. Okay. Since then, the people then all turned against them. And whether you know this or not, you can look this up. If you're not from the United States, if you're from Europe, you know this firsthand because you're over there. But if you're in Australia or in the United States or Canada, you may not know this at all. Or if you're from another country outside of those European-run countries, 50 countries on this planet, most of them in Europe, had elections in the last 6 months. All 50 countries voted out the progressive communist people out of their governmental systems completely and took back control of their governmental systems. Same thing just happened in the United States. The only way that that happens is that people who are not the enemy, people who are not Republicans, who are in fact Democrats and independents and people who aren't even affiliated with a party like myself. I'm legally listed as no party affiliation, okay? Those people, many of them had to vote for Donald Trump to change things. This happened in 50 other countries because the lockdowns that these evil people put on the people are waking up to that, and they're not buying that the virus was created by some bat in a wet market. They're not buying that the shots didn't do damage to them. They're not buying this progressive ideology that it was being implemented against their will, and they voted these people out. And the first ones who did it was Iceland, and Iceland voted them out, and they refused to leave. So Iceland had a revolution 2 years ago and overthrew their government and put in a new government and put all those people in jail and executed some of them. You should look into that. Okay. So they were the first ones to topple, and those people were resisting and were like, we're not leaving office. And they were like, oh yeah, you are. Now let's piss off Vikings and see what happens. Okay. So I know whether you believe me or not, whether I'm your enemy right now, because you're listening to this and you automatically assume I'm your enemy. Because if you're a right-wing conservative, whatever you call that party in your country, you think I'm a rebel Democrat or a progressive. And if you're a left-wing progressive, you just know that I must be a conservative. I must be a nationalist, right? So if you're in that religion and you have drawn a side and you point at someone and say, that's my enemy, you think I'm your enemy. Both sides think I'm your enemy. It's just like most churches. I'm a pastor in 4 different religions. Most of those religions think I'm their enemy. Why? Because I'm preaching spirituality the way that the very people that their religion was based on was preaching to the whole entire world. The same message they were being taught then, that these people have turned into a power structure religion. Okay, so they see me as their enemy. So you probably see me as your enemy. But the truth is that those lockdowns didn't work and the people were rejecting these people. Why did that happen? That happened because of this. And people that are in politics, that are in the know, have actually said, and I'll get back on point, they have actually said, this is not a political movement that's happening across the world. This is people rising up and taking back control of their own governments. All parties getting together. If you look at Donald Trump and most of the people that he has in his cabinet, including Donald Trump, they were all Democrats. They were all Democrats 20 years ago. Most of the people that are working with Donald Trump today were Democrats 5 years ago. Okay, and there still are Democrats, or they've become independent because they don't believe in the Democratic Party. They haven't converted to the Republican Party, like everyone says. They are outside of those 2 parties in the United States, but they're working because of their experiences with this progressive ideology, that they're like, these people aren't just they're trying to become communists. They're trying to take total control. They need to be stopped. And it's not these politicians. It goes deeper than that, to these oligarchs, these corporations that think they own the planet and they have all this money around the world, and they're orchestrating all of this from behind the scenes. That was a conspiracy theory 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Today, more and more people on the face of the earth are going, that shit's actually happening. Okay. So my point is that the shift changes people because of these people doing evil actually serves the all. By what they did and everything that they've done, that created in all of the population, people waking up more and then choosing a side and saying, I don't like what you're doing. And they're like, of course you do. These are not the droids you're looking for. And they keep gaslighting, and people are waking up. What caused them to wake up? These lockdowns, these measures that were killing people, this disease, whether or not you believe it was manufactured, it was by anybody's standards, it was lousily taken care of by all governments. The only way that can happen by most governments is that they must have been in on it, because the ones who did, like Sweden, for instance, they were like, we're not taking any vaccines and we're not locking anybody down. I don't think this is as bad as they're saying. And if everybody just treats it that way, we're going to be fine. And guess what? They didn't have any extra people die compared to any other countries. In fact, they had half the people die in that country per capita than every country who did a lockdown and did vaccines. Okay, and they're not the only country who said, we're ignoring you guys and we're not going to do that. We're not taking any shots. And those countries fared better than all the countries that did lockdowns and shots. Okay. So, but they don't want you to know this. You can look at this stuff up, but you got to get off of Google, because they'll put it down to like the 30-second thing that you can look at. Most people read the first 10 and they don't go past that. Most people read the first 2 or 3 and they don't go past that. If you get off that search engine, or a search engine that's controlled by those oligarchs, and go to a lesser search engine, you find these things, or communicate with people from around the world who will send you stuff, right? But then you have to figure out which is real and what's this, crazy computer stuff, because today almost 80% of everything on the internet is made by computers now, by AI. Anyway, not 80%, but man, is it over 50% already. So what Carla needed to do to get back on point to answer the question for you, and what you need to do, is not engage in a war with evil people. That's their wheelhouse. That's the physical. Whether you're doing it in a spiritual way or not, that's their wheelhouse of conflict, bellicosity. They want you to do that. Okay, so you don't engage when they do that. Okay, people talk crap about me daily in my life. I don't engage or defend myself ever, and people that can't understand that. Why are you not defending yourself? My actions and my personality and what I'm about speaks for who I am. I don't need, because somebody says he's a bad person and he's evil, I don't need to do anything other than who I am and let you judge me for who I am. If you feel that you need to judge me, do so. If you feel that that person is right, and that because I'm not defending myself, because this is not a television program to where, well, I'm accusing you, therefore you have to defend yourself. No, I don't. I don't have to do anything. I'm going to ignore you and go about my life and let everybody else determine for themselves what to think about me. I'm not going to try to convince them like you're trying to do. I won't defend that at all. I'll ignore that. Why is that? Because you will then either see me for who I actually am, and even if you don't trust me, I'm going to wait. That guy's his true colors are going to come out. And if you wait long enough, it'll never happen. So you're either going to go, he knows I'm watching him, for the rest of your entire existence, assuming that I'm playing you the whole time. Think that's ego, that you think that all I'm doing is playing in front of you to convince you. Or you'll realize over time, maybe this guy isn't at all. He hasn't changed. The one thing that I am is consistent and loyal. So I never change. My personality doesn't change. I don't change. I am who I am. And I tell people, don't believe me and watch. Watch other people and see if they're the same. Okay. See if those people who are talking crap about me get more and more angry and violent, the less and less I even acknowledge their existence. Eventually they'll go away. Or eventually you're going to find other people that are going to go, that person does this to everybody, and you need to be careful. Okay. So I will not engage, because that's their wheelhouse. So you don't fight against somebody. You put up barriers so that they cannot attack you. You need to realize, and this is what I talked about last week, but you probably weren't here last week, okay? So when I said this, I had talked about it on Wednesday too, so that was not on a live, that was on a Zoom call where I was answering questions, which I do every Wednesday, by the way. Anybody around the world, wherever you are, 3 p.m. West Coast America time on Wednesday, I do a Zoom call where anybody is welcome to come in there and ask questions, and it's not being recorded and it's not being broadcast to the world. So that way you don't have to worry about what you're asking, and maybe your friends and family might tune in and hear or see you asking questions, and you might take heat. So I talked about that, and I say to people, and I've been doing this for 35 years talking about this, and I teach this to people, and I'll say to people a lot, like, have you ever in one of your dreams been in a place, a couple of different scenarios, one of which you're there with 4 or 5 up to 7 other people only, and you're standing, and it's a weird landscape. It's not anywhere on the earth, maybe some desert or something, but it's not hot. You're on this weird landscape, and there's an entire horde of evil people that are coming at you. And as you're standing there, nobody seems to be afraid in any way. And as you're standing there, one person steps up in front of the rest of you and just stands there. And it's that moment that Gandalf did, if you ever read or saw the Lord of the Rings, when Gandalf was standing on that platform deep in the earth, and the Balrog was trying to come and get them and kill them. And he says, "You shall not pass." And he hits his staff, and there's this bubble around him that the Balrog cannot penetrate. And it was only when Gandalf turned around and let the bubble collapse, thinking he was safe, that the Balrog with his whip was able to whip his whip up while he was falling into the abyss and hook Gandalf's foot, hook his leg, and pull him off with him. Okay? Had he not let his guard down, he would have been able to just walk away and he would never have died. But then that had to happen for the way that everything had to take place. So literally, then when the horde comes, that one person is literally greeting them with the love and the light of the infinite creator, and they cannot pass. And they cannot reach the person who is standing there. And all of that entire army, using every ounce of hatred and anger and violence, is trying to attack, and they wear themselves out. And when they wear themselves out, they retreat. When they retreat, that person collapses because of all of the energy that they've expended. That's where the Vikings came up with the berserker ideology. And then the people would go and grab that person and pull them back, and then start healing that person and giving them energy. And one other person steps up and waits for the horde to regain its strength and come at them again. If you've ever had that dream, that's a real place and it's really happening. Okay. There's a few others also that we talk about, and I'm not going to get involved in right now because I'm already taking a long enough time. So you have to trust and realize that they are not equal in power. They on this place in the third dimension are trying to get you convinced. Chandra, welcome. Risen Nation, welcome. They're trying to get you convinced that evil is equal to God, the creator of the universe, and that God is on one mountaintop and the devil is on the other mountaintop, and they're playing chess, vying for control of the human race. That's going on within you, your ego on the left side and the conscience on the right side, the devil on the left shoulder and the angel on your right shoulder. That is going on within you. But that's not what's going on in the universe, because evil was only created for this scenario, and going forward from here, from this place, third dimension, is the first place that happens. Okay, that's the only place that you are self-aware. There is no evil dog like they portray in movies. There is no evil tree. They don't have those personalities. They're all completely instinctual. They just do things not because they want to, and they've chosen, I'm going to murder a child just for the fun of it. Animals don't do that. They don't do that. They don't kill for fun. They kill for food. They might get a taste for a human. A wolf, maybe, say, would get a taste for a lion or a tiger. They might get the taste for human meat, and it's easier because it's an easier target that doesn't fight back and can't fight back. Then when humans find that out, they usually go and hunt that animal down and kill it. And that has all other animals afraid of humans because of it. So the only predator happens here that are here. Once you become self-aware, you become a human in this place, and then you have that dichotomy, that battle between good and evil. So evil is in the physical only. They don't move into the spiritual. They start moving up into the spiritual only in the 4th and 5th and halfway through the 6th, or up to halfway through the 6th, but they're not able to go past that point. They get stuck halfway through the 6th. That's the proverbial literal purgatory or hell, to where they cannot advance. They don't know that. They refuse to believe it. And when they get there, it happens. And eventually they start to figure that out. And then they go, what do I have to do to fix this? And then they repent, nautical term. They reverse their course, and they don't have to go all the way back down to the third and move all the way up. Once they actually, because you can't fool the universe, once you actually decide that you're no longer going to be in service to self and you're going to be in service to others, you don't have to go all the way back down and all the way back up. You immediately flip, and then when that life ends, you then start, incarnate into a life that is moving in service to others, and then you start your ascension again. Okay. So whether you believe that or not doesn't matter, because that's the way it works. Okay. So I tell people that and they're like, I don't believe you. Okay. You have that choice here. You don't have to believe anything that I say. So the best thing that you can do is to greet evil within the love and the light of the infinite creator. And the only thing you have to do is then physically guard your physical body, because once they realize that they can't do anything to you mentally to break you, they will try to dominate you physically to break you, because they have no other recourse. That's why they usually try to kill people in this situation, because they need to shut you up. They need to have you recycle so that you're veiled again, and that way they can gain control in the physical plane over everyone else by dominating. Kill that person, they're gone. You tell people there is no afterlife, that person's gone forever, they're never coming back. And they know the truth of that is no one's ever going to see that person again, because if that person were to tomorrow come back to human form, they would be born as a baby and they would be completely veiled. And it would take them, unless they come through completely awake, which is rare. We do that, but it's not as often as people would like. So by the time they wake up, then they don't. And once you do wake up fully, you don't care about who you were by that time before. So you don't go looking for your relatives. And most of the time, the way it actually works is, if I die today, only it doesn't happen right now because things have changed, but normally if this place was working properly, if I died today, I couldn't reincarnate for 100 years. Because of that, I don't come in and run into my own wife or my own kids or any of that, or my own friends. Okay. You're supposed to not come in. So that's how you end up grouping with people, to where you come through the same group of people in each lifetime. You stay there and wait. They all end up dying off, and then you guys start filtering back into life, so that you end up being around the same people because you have soul contracts. I know this is kind of complicated. We may not want to go down that road. However, the best thing that you can do is to protect yourself. So you greet them with the love and the light of the infinite creator. And we teach people how to create these barriers that are literally that. And then you protect your physical body against any kind of onslaught from them. And that's the only thing that you have to do. So you reflect the energy back to them, and then you protect your physical plane at the same time. And that's what they were teaching Carla to do. That's why they have Carla and Dawn and Leonard originally, but then I think it's James or Steve, I don't remember his name, who's the scribe. They have them cast a bubble for them to work in, cast a circle for them to work in, so that keeps that energy out from the physical and mostly the astral as well. But that's not around them 24 hours a day. So Carla's being, someone's trying to attack her all the time, all the way up to the day of her death, which was in, somewhere between 2012 and 2015. I don't remember the exact date. So for them, it was make sure that you cast this bubble to work in, so that when she's in that state, they can't attack her and do damage to her. And then make sure that you're eating right, meditating, exercising, and paying attention, and putting up boundaries in your normal life, which is what anybody in the right mind should be teaching you, if they're teaching you ascension. Because once you start to pierce the veil and you start to learn and have the downloads, the color of your aura changes, and people will perceive the indigo color, because you're moving into the indigo chakra. So the people will start, whether they pick it up consciously or not, they realize that. And negative people are aware of that. Whether they're aware of it consciously or subconsciously is another story, because they can be completely veiled, but they'll hate you more. Okay. Joanne says, yes, understanding is the greater form of wisdom, following the cycle of life. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you have to realize that. And Sherry says, 9 need stepped Need stepped in to apparently help the heart like to vote, too many hearts to keep/fight the ban. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there because it is a little bit cryptic. But yeah, you do have to realize that the heart is the center of both the bottom three. What you have is the Vesica Pisces. You have around you a toroidal field that is a triple toroidal field, just like the yin and the yang, which is a Vesica Pisces. Okay, it is the lower three chakras that go around to the heart, the fourth. The upper three chakras that comes down around to the heart, the fourth. Okay, so the top three and the bottom three are ruled by the heart chakra. Okay, the love in the heart chakra, you're either in love and you are in service to others, which means you love others, or you're in service to self, which means you love self. Either way, there's either self-love or love for others. Okay, so the heart rules both the lower three chakras and the upper three chakras, just determine about what you have chosen. So that actuator is the service to the all that people don't realize is the balance. So that's why the yin and the yang and the Vesica Pisces is that yin and yang. So the reason that the white is in the dark and the dark is in the light is because that's the heart chakra that you're seeing in that drawing, which is actually they've actually who talked about that. A bunch of people, but now Joe Rogan was talking about that, because when they had the computers show the symbol for that quantum entanglement, it's actually the yin and the yang. So how is it that the Asians knew about that 5,000, 10,000 years ago? And they drew that picture of the yin and the yang, which is the Vesica Pisces with the light and dark, masculine and feminine energy, ruled by one energy in the center that are including both energies overlapping in the center. And it turns out that the quantum entanglement is exactly that. The computer is actually showing that image now. And it's not because we integrated the computer into that. The computer, when they said, what does this will look like in third dimensional spatial reality, the computer spit that out and they were like, wait a minute, the Asians have been drawing that for thousands of years. Can that be wrong? And the computer was like, no, that's what it is. How did the Asians know that without computers 10,000 years ago? But they did. Okay, so that's not an accident. That's something strange that's happening in the universe itself. Okay, so that's the people starting to wake up. So you don't want to engage somebody who's in service to others or in service to self. You just ignore them. You just go about your day. And when they try to attack you, they have to come at you physically. And then if they talk shit about you to other people, you just ignore them and let other people figure that out for themselves. Okay. Trust that people are going to figure out that person is lying about you or they're not. I don't defend that. Because I have, if I'm not doing anything that is self-serving, then I don't have to worry about it when somebody accuses me of it. People do it all the time. People have been doing it my entire life. My own stepfather hated my guts and wanted me to die off the face of the earth. Not a joke, okay? Because of who I am. Could not stand me. But in my presence, he would act like I was his best friend on the face of the earth until I wasn't in earshot. And then he would talk shit about me behind my back, okay? And that's what he did when I came here to help my mother. He tried to get my mother to kick me out on the street after I was no more use of him when I got here and paid off all their bills and showed him how to balance his own money and loaned him money to pay for everything to get him back on top. And then everything was fine and he wasn't in debt and he wasn't going to have anything to power cable shut off. And then he had no more use for me and he tried to get my mom to kick me out, okay, because he didn't have any use for me. But he would argue with my mom in the middle of the night. She told me this afterwards. She'd be in there arguing with him and I would be in the dining room and he would come out and tell me how much he was appreciating me being here and was so glad that I was here. But he just spent an hour telling my mother that she needs to kick me out on the streets. But he didn't say that to me. So later on, I find this out from my mom. Like, I just assumed that about him anyways, right? So you have to realize that. So what you do in that scenario, getting back on point and we'll get Raw started again. What you do in that scenario is you put up those boundaries. You greet them within the love and the light of the infinite creator. So you create that that boundary, and they'll smash against it and hate you for it. And then just like in, witch wars, when people are like, I'm going to hex that person and I'm going to send evil demons to get them. And what will happen is that that energy will be transported back onto them. Okay. It'll literally be reflected back to them, and they'll assume, because that's who they are, they'll assume you're attacking them now, and they'll attack you more. I've done that so many times with people, like, if that person's going to start a witch war with you and attack you, what are you going to do? I'm like, nothing. That person's going to defeat themselves. All I'm going to do is reflect all that information, all evilness, all aggression back to the sender, whoever that is. It's off of me. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. All I'm trying to do is not allow anybody to do that to me. So unless they come to my house physically and try to shoot me or beat me with a baseball bat or burn my house down, then I don't have to worry about it. And if they do physically, you just have to be prepared for that. So if somebody physically tries to take your life, you're able to fend them off and destroy them. Okay. So literally that's all I do. I just put up the barriers and let them take care of themselves. They'll do it every time, because they'll be like, hexy poo, hex on you. And then all of a sudden their life starts getting shitty. And then they go, that person's attacking me. I'm in a witch war. And they can't help themselves. And they start going after you even more and after you even more and after you even more. And that causes the backfire that I was talking about with COVID and the lockdowns and the progressive ideology that we're trying to turn people into communist countries. That caused the entire population of those countries and around the world to shift. Even though they didn't like that political party, they were like, we need to get these people stopped. That forces people to wake up. And so when COVID was happening, I said, this is going to be one of the best things that have ever happened to this world. And people got mad at me. They still do. How dare you? Do you know how many people died during COVID? I can't believe that you would ever say that. And they get all psycho about it. And I'm like, and the changes, there are more changes that have happened in the last 5 years on this earth than there were in the 50 years prior to that, because of that event. Because of that event. People are going to look back on this time in 20 years from now, and they're going to say that one of the greatest things that ever happened to this planet was that evil people tried to take control of it back in 2019. This is going to go on for a while before the evil people stop themselves from smashing against the rocks, trying to destroy the very people that they were trying to destroy. And that's what's happening. It's playing out in politics. If you look at politics and pay attention to what's going on, they're still smashing into that rock. Hate. Some of them are already pulling back, going, you need to stop doing that. We're never going to get elected again if you continue that. And they're like, no, I must kill him. I must kill them. Those people are going to be the ones that are going to cause people to even more people to go away from that ideology. And this has been predicted. This is what happens. Raw talks about this at one point when Dawn asks about an alien invasion. Why is it that the Orion Crusaders just didn't show up here in spaceships and just take over the world? Because the way it works is that the vampire has to knock on the door and ask permission to come in. So if the vampire shows up and smashes in the front door and tries to kill people, everybody in the house will turn against the vampire. So if an alien race comes down here, and this is why they know this, the evil people know this, and that's why they have a false flag alien invasion that they still might try to roll out. People are starting to warn against it again right now, because if they get desperate enough, they'll do that, and all of a sudden spaceships will show up and they'll tell everybody, oh no, big bad aliens are here. We need to all get together and form one government to rule them all, one ring to rule them all. That's what was being warned to you in The Lord of the Rings. And literally, that's what they're trying to do. And they'll try to do that. They could try to do that with a false flag alien invasion, because they know that the dynamic is, if an alien came down here, it would be exactly like you saw in the movie Independence Day, where aliens showed up to invade the earth. Everybody on the planet all of a sudden forgot that they hated each other. The Russians forgot they hated Americans. Americans didn't care that they hated the Russians. The Chinese all of a sudden loved everybody, and so did America, and so did everybody else. The Germans were working with the Russians, who were working with the Chinese, who were working with the Australians and the Canadians and the Americans, and they all tried to figure it out, and they did, and then they get on the horn and tell everybody around the world how we can take these sons of bitches down. And the entire planet united against the evil people. That's why they don't invade that way. Okay? So the same thing happens on every level, down to the individual person. It's the same dynamic. And if you understand that dynamic, then you understand how to fight them. You don't fight them in the physical because that's their plane. The lower three chakras is the evil plane. Okay? You fight them in the spiritual. That's called taking the high road. Okay? That's called taking the high road. You use your wits, you use your mind, you use love, you use temperance, you use endurance, you use these things, indifference to that physicality. So when I talk about stuff, sometimes somebody will pop in and they'll go, "You're talking about a revolution." No, I'm not. I am not talking about physically trying to overthrow any government anywhere on the face of the earth. If no one learned anything from Mahatma Gandhi defeated the largest empire at the time, the British Empire at the time, the United Kingdom, without ever firing a shot or in any way attacking physically anyone. He taught his people to simply say no. And when they said, "You will pick our wheat in the fields," they sat down and said, "No, we will not." Okay? They crippled the English Empire so much, the English left India and gave it back to the Indians. Because Mahatma Gandhi taught them that if you want to fight them, you do not fight them. You do not resist them. You simply say no. You shall not pass. Okay? So that is what you do to protect yourself against all evil at all times, or all persons of whatever level of self-serving narcissism that they are. You ignore them and move about your life. And all you have to then do is worry about whether or not they come to your house to try to murder you or shoot you in the streets. And if you stay diligent when you're out in the public and pay attention to what's going on, that becomes more difficult. Okay? And then they have no power over you, because the only power that anyone has over you is what you give them. So if somebody's trying to attack you, if you don't give them any power, they don't have any. It diminishes that quickly. That's why people say you have to have faith in God, because if you have faith in God that God will protect you, it'll happen. And people are like, "No, it won't." So when Jesus says turn the other cheek, I'm supposed to let them kick my ass? That's not what that meant. Spiritually, you turn the other cheek. You do not become them. Physically, if somebody punches you in the face, break their shit off. Okay? Peel them back. Okay? Because how dare they get into your space and physically try to harm you? So I always tell everybody, you should learn martial arts, you should learn physically, you should learn how to fight with weapons of all, because at some point in your life, you may physically need to defend your physical body. If you never have to do that in your entire life, you've led a very, very profitable life. But you will have to defend yourself spiritually every day on this earth, because people are psychologically coming at you more, far more, 90% more than they are physically trying to come after you. So we teach people you need to be strong mentally and spiritually, because that's truly where the warfare actually happens, even for evil people. Last resort, they will physically try to break you. Last resort. If they don't have to physically attack you, they don't want to either. Because truth is, they will only do it if they have the upper hand or think they have the upper hand. Otherwise, they will never do it. The only way that somebody talks shit about you is behind your back. And then if they do it in public, it's usually a display, right? And if you can, if they do it in public and you just go, all right, and you kick them like if they're in a group and they say it, you go, all right, bye. And then people go, you're not going to defend yourself? No, if you want to believe that person, you're free to do that. You're free to believe that. Because the modus operandi is that way. If you look at, say, politics, okay, let's go back before that. Let's not talk about current politics because that might trigger some people. Let's go back to thousands of years ago. Okay, during 1207, at the time that the church in Rome had power over the earth, and the king in France, and between the king in France and the Pope in Rome, they were pretty much indebted to the Knights Templars. And the Knights Templars owned more land than the French king and the Pope combined of their territories. and had most of the money, and they owed them money for wars that they had fought and borrowed money from the Temple Knights. So in 1207, the Pope and the King of France and the Pope in Rome decided to get together and form a pact to attack and take over and arrest all Knights Templars at the exact same time across the globe on Friday, October the 13th at 7 a.m. Zulu time, Greenwich Mean Time. Around the world, they would muster before that and get ready in secret, and they would arrest and seize all of their assets, all of their weaponry, all of their personnel, all of their land, all of their money, and they would execute anybody that would not swear allegiance to them, and they would put charges against them. The charges that the church levied for thousands of years, for 1,500 years, against anybody that they did not like were always the same: heresy, Satanism, worshiping a skull, peeing on the cross, identical all throughout time. Now coming forward in time, here in the United States, the Progressive Democrat Party are going up against people in the Republicans that are appointed by Republicans or Republicans, and they fight against them in the exact same way. They have done this. Donald Trump, he's a racist. He's a rapist. He's a misogynist. They didn't want Donald Trump as the president of the United States. So then they would go after him with lawfare and try to say that he molested somebody. Okay. So then look at other people. Now, people that Donald Trump is appointing since he won the election is appointing. When he was a president the first time, he tried to put Brett Kavanaugh in as a Supreme Court justice. They said Brett Kavanaugh raped a woman. He was misogynist. He was a rapist. He was a racist. Same exact levy of charges. And they even had a woman they paid to come up and say, he raped me. And then under scrutiny, she said, I don't actually remember if it was him. I don't remember actually seeing him even at the party. And then he ended up as a Supreme Court justice. Come forward in time to now, 3 of his cabinet members, they're levying the exact same things. He's a pedophile. He's a rapist. He's a racist. They use the exact same modus operandi. And if you're not paying attention, you take that bait. They're actually accusing these people of what they're actually doing. Okay? So, but they always do the same thing. Then if you look at the people on the other side of the aisle, they're going to do the same thing. That person is a racist. They're a pedophile. They're a rapist. Evil people don't have much imagination. They use the same things over and over and over and over and over. But it works on people who have no idea, they're not paying attention, that it's the same thing. They're just going, well, he's my enemy, and I'm sure, yeah, he's a rich person. He must be a rapist. He must be, because they all do it. Well, if they all do it, then you're trusting a rapist who's telling you that person's a rapist. You're trusting a pedophile that guy's a pedophile. Okay? You're trusting a liar that guy's lying. A buddy of mine used to say this to people all the time. He used to say to them, you have to watch out for me because I am a habitual liar. I just lied to you. Okay? And then he would let you blow your fucking mind trying to figure out what just happened to you. And he would laugh. Right? I'm a habitual liar. I can never tell the truth. I just lied to you. Okay? And I thought it was one of the funniest things. I'd watch him do that, and people would go, wait a minute, what? And he would go, yeah, figure that one out. Blow your brains out trying to figure that one out. Okay? So now that I got my glasses on, it looks like you guys are making comments. I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to what you guys are saying, right? So you have to realize that. So when people are that way and they're self-serving, you just ignore them and you just go about your life and you put up those boundaries. And that's what Raw told Carla, and I'll let that play. He literally told Carla that over and over. To defend yourself, you greet them with the love and the light of the infinite creator. You have to realize, once you start getting into 4D thinking and 5D thinking, the realization that I am not the thinking mind, I am not the ego, I am the experiencer. Then when you start saying, wait, I am a co-creator of this place, and that this place is designed for us to create here. You're moving out of the bottom 3 chakras now. You're moving up into the top 3 chakras. When you go beyond that to 5D thinking, is the realization when you're literally above this ecosystem, looking back on it, is the realization that, oh wait, this is an ecosystem and it's perfect. There is no right and wrong. There just is experience, and everybody, no matter how good or evil they are, they serve the all by their actions and the things that they do and say. And this is why I would make the comment, one of the greatest things that's happened to this planet was COVID, because it has changed the people of this planet in the last 4 years, and is helping wake people up exponentially. And people are now looking at evil people differently and going, wait a minute, does anyone else notice that they've been lying to us? And they just started lying to us. They used to like pretend that they weren't lying to us. Now they're blatant. And I always say to those people, no, they've always been blatant. You're just now perceiving it for the first time. They've always been this way. Forever. They operate exactly like this, and they always have. They don't even realize that you realize it right now. And they'll try to convince you that you're not seeing that. These are not the droids you're looking for. You do not need to see their identification. They can go about their business, move along. And they'll try to Jedi mind trick you, gaslight you into thinking that you're not seeing what you're seeing. But when you get to that point, you can resist that. They can no longer control you with that Jedi mind trick that they've been controlling you with your entire life. So you start realizing, oh my God, they're lying. Everything's lying. Or everybody's lying. They're lying on the television, they're lying on the news. The politicians are lying. Yes, they always have been. When you were a kid, you didn't notice it. When you were sleeping, even with your eyes open, you didn't know that. You believed the channel that was telling you that. There isn't a channel on television that is telling you the truth. They're all telling you the truth, but they're all telling it to you from their perspective of them being the victim. Just like children do if you have more than one child. You know this. You know that trick. You hear somebody fighting in the other room and you go in there and Billy and Jenny are fighting. And when you say what happened, both of them all of a sudden didn't do anything wrong and the other one hit me first. Okay, so you know that the one thing they can agree on is they were both hitting each other. So you know there was a physical altercation. You just don't know who started it. That's why cops separate people immediately, so they can't tell the same story or argue about it in front of the cop, and they interview each person, and then they have another cop interview them as well to see how long, if their stories stay the same, what they tell the cop, each cop. And then each cop asks them a different grouping of questions to get more information. Then the two cops get together, and then they share what everybody said to them, and then they can figure out the real true story of what happened here. Okay? You have to do that with politicians. You have to do that with all evil people. And if there's only one evil person, you don't even have to worry about that, because that's the one person. Then what you do is you have to allow other people to have the ability to figure that person out through time on their own. So you have to love your children enough to allow them to burn themselves after you've warned them. Don't touch that stove. You're going to burn yourself. It's hot. Don't do that. And you stop them if you see them trying to burn themselves. Eventually, they're going to burn themselves if you don't watch them every second of every day. And eventually, if you do watch them all the time when they get near the stove, when it's hot, you don't let them do it. When you're gone, they're going to turn the stove on and touch it. Okay? All you can do is tell them don't do it and stop them when you see them. After that, they have to determine for themselves whether they burn themselves or not. Same thing happens with people when they talk shit about you or people who attack you in a psychic way. All you have to do is reflect that back, defend yourself, and then stop a physical onslaught and allow everybody else to figure that out on their own. You have to trust that the actions of a person who is in service to self will eventually start aligning people around them by waking them up, because those people will start to see a pattern evolve. And if your pattern is in service to others, they're going to see that you've never wavered from that and that you've never done anything to harm people, even though there's somebody that's saying that you have. Then you're going to find that that person, either other people are going to say that person said that about this one and that one and this one, or you're going to see that person doing that. So either way, on a long enough timeline, those people cannot hide long enough from you, because you start questioning and start thinking for yourself. So those of us who are aware of that we allow you to make that, because that's the lessons that we all have to make on our own. If I try to defend myself, then that plays into that person's what they want you to do. Okay. So you just don't do it. And I can tell you this out loud because it doesn't matter if they find out about it or not. Okay. Because they can't help themselves. They don't have the ability to create. So the only creativity they have is a devious creativity. And that's actually mapped out already. So it's all expected, up to and including someone trying to murder you. Okay. Depending on the rage that they end up in. And then, so they'll just continue going down that road. And eventually people will go, I'm not listening to that person anymore. That person sounds crazy. Okay. They take care of themselves. That's the point of that knowledge of putting up defensive barriers and just loving someone, because that repels people who love self. They're offended by you loving them when they're evil. They want you to worship them. They want to control you. But if you don't let them do any of that and you just, I greet you with the love and the light of the infinite creator. They fucking hate that. Drives them insane. They get even more enraged. Okay. So let me go back to let Raw play, and I'll read some of the stuff that you guys have been talking about. And if there's any questions, I apologize. I'll try to find them. And if I don't and I miss it, please ask them again.
Raw, I am Raw. This entity has two desires. The first and foremost is to, shall we say, misplace one or more of this group in a negative orientation so that it may choose to be of service along the path of service to self. The objective which must precede this is the termination of the physical complex viability of one of this group, while the mind/body/spirit complex is within a controllable configuration. May we say that although we of RA have limited understanding, it is our belief that sending this entity love and light, which each of the group is doing, is the most helpful catalyst which the group may offer to this entity. 67.9 Questioner, we find I'm sorry. Continue if you wish to continue with it. Ra, I am Ra. We were about to note that this entity has been as neutralized as possible in our estimation by this love offering, and thus its continued presence is perhaps the understandable limit for each polarity of the various views of service which each may render to the other. 67.10 Questioner, we have a paradoxical situation in that in order to fully serve the Creator at this level in the polarized section, you might say, of the creation, we have requests from those whom we serve in this density for Ra's information. In fact, I just had one by telephone a short while ago. However, we have requests from, in this particular case, another density not to disseminate this information. We have the Creator, in fact, requesting two seemingly opposite activities of this group. It would be very helpful if we could reach a condition of full, total, complete service in such a way that we were by every thought and activity serving the Creator to the very best of our ability. Is it possible for you to solve, or possible for the fifth density entity who offers its service to solve, the paradox that I have observed? Ra, I am Ra. It is quite possible. 67.11 Questioner, then how could we solve this paradox?
Okay, so before we get involved in that, so Sherry said what COVID did as a byproduct, killing elderly in their homes and hospitals, was were full, and mental health related deaths were unbelievable. That was their plan. That was their plan. If you look at things that people did, like for instance, Cuomo in New York, he ordered all of the elderly people to go back into the home, kept them there basically with other people who had COVID. I don't think he made that decision on his own. And because he said that he did what he was told to do. So they convinced everybody to make sure that everybody was locked down. So before they told everybody to self-distance, they told everybody to huddle together. And then that spread the virus to everybody. And the virus was designed so that if anybody had comorbidities, which means if you have other diseases that you're fighting off, then basically it gives you what is known as AIDS. Okay. But everybody's used that word. They use that word for the sexually transmitted disease that was killing people starting in the 80s, 40 years ago. But what AIDS actually means is autoimmune deficiency syndrome. Okay, and what that is that you get something that you already have other problems that your body your immune system is working on to try and keep you from dying from. Some could be diseases that are slowly killing you that your body's trying to fight off. Okay, people who have lupus or cancer or heart disease or COPD or asthma, diabetes. Those are diseases that can kill you in the long run, and your body's fighting constantly against them. Then you get a autoimmune problem like a flu or something that is a super flu or a super virus, and that overwhelms your immune system to where now it cannot function anymore because you have too many things that your immune system is fighting against. So when people got COVID, when they got the SARS-CoV-2, which was a flu bug, and they now have admitted that. So a disease, they're trying to tell you a disease degenerated into a flu. That can't happen. A disease is like something like cancer. Cancer will not become a flu. Okay. So how did something that was lung disease, heart disease, diabetes turn into a flu? The only way that happens is that it was never anything but a flu. But what it does to the body is, if you're older and you're not in shape, you're overweight, you have all these other autoimmune problems and comorbidities, meaning other morbid possibilities from diseases that you're dying from, then you get this super flu bug. It destroys your immune system, and your immune system can't keep up, and it shuts down because it doesn't have the fuel to defend itself. If you watch the movie The Dallas Buyers Club, which was a true story, Matthew McConaughey played the character of the gentleman who contracted AIDS, and he didn't get it from being gay. He got it from having too much sex with women. He went because the doctors the drugs they were giving people were killing people, and he stopped taking that. He went to Mexico and found out that if you pump your immune system up with all these vitamins, that you can stave off AIDS. Why then did the American government seize that from him and not allow him to give that medicine to anyone? That happened in real life. That's why they made a movie about it. Because AIDS is autoimmune deficiency syndrome, and it was killing people. So he was taking all kinds of vitamins and minerals that were boosting the immune system and keeping people alive. That's exactly the way they treat AIDS today, by the way, is they boost your immune system so that you don't die from it anymore. So AIDS isn't a disease that will ultimately kill you. AIDS is a virus that you can survive. So it didn't degenerate into a flu. Now they're trying to tell you that SARS-CoV-2, which turned into COVID-19, which was basically the new term for the word autoimmune deficiency syndrome, AIDS, because they already scared you with that one and said that was because gay people were having sex. But it was actually a function of what happens. You have to remember that I'm a physicist. I was actually, you can still probably look me up. I was registered for over 10 years in the United States as a physicist, okay? As a chemist, not a physicist, as a chemist. So I understand the chemistry of this. I wasn't practicing for the government or working for somebody, so I wasn't a physicist, but I was working for somebody in the chemistry capacity. It had to be certified, okay? So COVID was only a flu vaccine, a flu bug. It's degenerated to where they're now, it's just a flu. It was very virulent, very strong, and highly contagious. And anybody that was, unfortunately, had other issues, it could overwhelm your immune system and you would die. So if you were over the age of 65, they now claim if you're over the age of 55 or 50, I see their commercials on television right now. If you're over the age of 50, you're at the highest risk. So so originally said it was people that were, and this was the CDC in the United States and around the world, over 77. That didn't scare enough people, so they dropped it to 65. That didn't scare enough people, so they dropped it to 60. Now that nobody's dying from COVID anymore, they've dropped it to 50 because they're still trying to get you to get their shot, okay? At least in the United States. Anywhere it's not banned already, they're trying to get you to get the shot. So it was horrific because in history, they're gonna look back on this, and some people are going to end up going to jail over it. Most of the pharmaceutical companies in the United States got free reign. They made sure that the only reason that we're going to give you any of this vaccine is that you have to no matter what happens to the people, you have to sign this thing into law saying we can't be sued over it. Well, then when you come to find out that it's possible that the pharmaceutical companies who gave you the vaccine were the ones who created the virus, but now it's too late because you can't sue them over it because they had the governments sign the thing saying that. But that's going to end up coming out in history. Whether you believe me or not, it doesn't really matter, right? In fact, I always say to people, Celeste, welcome. I didn't realize that you popped in. Agnes, too. There's other people. Some of you popped in and I never even saw you because I didn't put my glasses on. So you have to realize that it was horrible, right? So Jamie said, is that your question? Did somebody put a question up and I missed it? Let me know if there was a question that I missed that I didn't see, and then I'll try to answer it, right? So Celeste said, my immune system is attacking my endocrine system. That sounds like lupus or something. That is an autoimmune problem. Pretty much attacks anything that produces hormones. That sucks. Yeah, you'll have to really look into that, and you'll have to look into that and find, because I'm sure there's stuff that will help you, Celeste, but you're going to have to be your own advocate because doctors are just going to end up diagnosing you with lupus or something like that and give you those pills. I'm working with people now. My ex-wife, Virginia, you should talk to her, by the way. You're friends with her still, I think, Celeste. She's been diagnosed with lupus and she's on medicine because she went through the same thing that you're going through currently and went through all those tests that they test you with. And she's on this medicine and she's trying to look holistically for things that could help her as well, because you have to boost your immune system to help it so that it doesn't attack. And it's just like when you have type 2 diabetes, your body produces insulin, but your body's rejecting the insulin. So you have to get your body to relax and accept the insulin. You don't want to just keep taking their medication because their medication eventually kills the gland in you that creates the insulin. And so then you're stuck with taking shots for the rest of your life of insulin, because that's what they do is the drug they give you, they tell you it's supposed to get your body to accept the insulin. But what it's doing is it's lowering the producing ability of your body, which eventually wears out that gland, or your gland is turned on too high and you're making too much insulin for your body, and they lower that because eventually that burns out the insulin producing part of your body, and then you end up diabetic either way, type 1, where you have to have shots. Same thing happens with your immune system. If your immune system is going too much and it has gotten crazy, that's what a cancer cell does. A cancer cell starts to automatically replicate itself over and over and over and over and over. It gets crazy and it keeps replicating itself, and that's what causes it to do damage, because it creates inflammation, and that replication starts to degrade and break down, and that's what then it turns on basically the cancer cell, and it starts to eat your body and attack your body. Same thing happens. So when your immune system starts doing that, you have to figure out what caused that trigger to get your immune system to go crazy and try to attack your own endocrine system, or your endocrine system to start attacking your organs. So you have to figure out what you can do to calm that within your physical body. First thing you need to do is cut out all processed foods, anything that has colors, dyes, sugars, too much salt, and look at your ingredients list in everything that you pick up in the store, and if it has any BHT or any of that stuff in it, stop eating that and get all organics, and that'll help your body to relax. But you got to get off of American food, processed foods and dyes and colors and all of that stuff to start with. So you drink alcohol, quit. If you love cakes, pies, and candies, stop. Unless you make them yourself and you use alternative sweeteners that are natural, instead of like a cane sugar or a beet sugar, go to like agave or honey. Find that stuff and fine tune your diet away from all these processed foods, because that just creates inflammation and craziness in your system. That's why Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to be in charge of trying to fix the healthcare system in America, because he's been fighting against them for the last 25 years, suing these companies in court and winning, going all the way to the Supreme Court sometimes on his own. And that's why they didn't want him to run against Joe Biden or Kamala Harris on the Democratic ticket. Because if people were able to hear this about him, they probably would have voted for him. And he would be our president right now, not Donald Trump. The Democrats couldn't have that. They went after him the same way they went after Donald Trump. They said that he was a pedophile, he was a rapist, a racist, and then they tried to get him removed from the ballot from all the states. The same stuff that they went after Donald Trump the same way, same lawfare. And he switched parties and ran as an independent against the Democrats. And then they took away his Secret Service task force and refused to give him that. And then kept going after him and were trying to get him removed because he was a threat in the same way that Donald Trump was a threat to their power base. And that's why he ended up teaming up with Donald Trump, because he's trying to fix our medical system, which he calls the poison medical system. Instead of being a medical system, they're not trying to help anybody. They're just trying to get everybody addicted to drugs. And he's aware of that. He wants to fix that. I probably would have voted for him if they would have ran him. I liked his ideologies, and I said that early on. I'm backing Robert Kennedy Jr. And eventually he was taken off the ballot in a bunch of places and started backing Trump. So then I said, okay, well, then I'm going to have to vote against these progressive ideologies that they have going on, whether or not right now you think I'm your enemy or not. You have to, look at that. Yeah, you have an overactive immune system. Yeah, no, you have to figure out what's causing your immune system to do that and to get crazy and try to attack you and your other parts of your body. So you have to look into that and find the natural foods that you can help yourself. Peter GV, my brother, I heard somebody said hi to Peter earlier, but I didn't find you and I was like, which Peter is that's here? Neither one of them is showing up on my chat. And there's Peter right there, right? If everyone told those running the VA, what is that? The VA mandate? Yeah, to go fuck themselves, they would have failed. Oh, the vaccine. That's what you're saying. The VAV mandate. To go fuck themselves, they would have failed, but that would have never happened because most were very obedient. Well, they know that dynamic, don't they, Peter? You and I've had this conversation. They know the dynamic that it's usually only 10% of the population that will resist them, that most of the people will fall in line when you push them hard enough. So that's why they started mandating in jobs in the United States, telling you if you didn't get the shot, you got fired from your job. Because people in the beginning were resisting. And so then they made corporations tell their employees, if you fire anyone who will not get the shot. So they had to tell everybody that the shot was the only way to save them, and anyone who didn't get it was the ones who were propagating death on the people, because that was the only way they could justify firing people who wouldn't get the shot. Because if they didn't say that, and then they said, you either get the shot or you get fired, people would say, try it and I'll sue you. Well, when the government came out and said that, and the government actually came out and said, any corporation that doesn't threaten their people, we are threatening you, that we will destroy you and tax you and levy you to destroy your company if you don't threaten your employees. That's actual fact. Now, those words came out. They actually said that on television. So the governments around the world threatened corporations to force them to threaten their employees to get the shot, because people were already resisting them in larger numbers than they wanted for them to get it. For them going to that kind of measure should tell you something right there, that why would they have to go to that measure? Well, it's for your own good because this thing's going to kill the planet. Well, the numbers don't add up. There's videos now on that, right? I even did the math. I did the math in 2019 going into 2020, and I was talking about it, and I kept getting kicked off the air. People are now doing the same thing, and they're putting them back on the air, and no one's kicking them off the air. The math doesn't add up. Okay, here's the math that's currently going around that those of us in the think tanks came up with in 2020. If there's 8 billion people on the planet and we have to get a shot for all 8 billion people, and we need to get it to them right now, how long does it take to create the shot? And how many of those can they create per second? Okay. So somebody extrapolated the math and said, if One company is making the shot at one shot per second. It would take 35 years to create 8 billion shots. So if there are 50 companies and all of those companies have 10 manufacturing plants, most of those companies didn't have that many. Most of them had 4 or 5. 10 manufacturing plants, that's 500 manufacturing plants, or 5,000. If they're all doing it at 1 per second, it'll still take 10 years to make 8 billion shots to cover the entire planet. How is it that they had enough shots for everyone to get that if they put it together and created the shot in 6 months? How is that possible? 24 hours a day, a shot per second. And if you speed up those machines to make it even faster, it only cuts it in half. It still would have taken them 5 years to make enough shots. How is it that they claim they had enough shots to inoculate the entire planet in 6 months? That's impossible. That's impossible. Even that means that they had to have had manufacturing plants to make that by the tens of thousands across the earth already ready. Made, waiting to make those shots alone. No corporation is going to have that many plants ready to go, and it's impossible to get that many plants up and operational because there's not all of those machines already made sitting around like there are 5,000, a million, 10 million cars sitting on lots across the world waiting for people to buy them. They don't have these machines. They cost a fuck ton of money. They don't have all of this equipment. It costs a fuck ton of money. They don't have all the factories. It costs a fuck ton of money. How is it possible that they claimed they had enough shots for the entire planet in less than a year? The only way that could have happened was they were already making the shot. That's the only way that could have happened. Otherwise, they should have run out of shots at some point and said, we're still making them as fast as we can, but we don't have any more. None of that happened. They were constantly with new batches coming in all the time, never ran out of shots. Okay, so if that's the case, either no one got the shot like they claimed that everyone got it, or they already had billions of shots already manufactured, sitting in ice boxes waiting for this pandemic. There is no other way around it. They had it before it happened. And I'm buffing. Oh, look at that. And I buffed and froze. I apologize. I'm going to have to move away from this topic of conversation because my latency just dropped off. And I haven't buffed like that. And I'm about to be taken down off the internet right now because I'm talking about a topic that they don't want me to talk about, right? This happened a little bit on Wednesday when we were supposedly not on the air and nobody was able to know about it. And we were talking politics then, and people said I started freezing as well. So I get, I'm in a military zone, so that can happen. But it's weird that it only happens when I'm talking about certain things. Right now, I'm watching my signals going back up. Right, so now I'm not talking about any algorithm is not able to dox me right now because I'm no longer talking about and I have a full signal again. All of a sudden, look at that. Stay off that topic. And I have a full signal, and I'm not going to buff. Start talking about the jibber jabber, and all of a sudden, somebody lowered my internet. And it only happens, and people go, that's just a coincidence. No, because it only happens when you talk about specific topics. If it happened all the time randomly when I was just sitting here talking about Jesus or the law of one or something like that, I would say, yeah, okay, it is just a coincidence. But the fact that the more I said certain words, it was dropping me down. And the second I stopped saying those words, all of a sudden I had full signal back again. Think about that, guys. You can believe whatever you want, right? So, yeah, you have to realize that. So let's get back to Raw talking about this very thing, basically, talking about that dynamic of how you defend against people that are that way, that are attacking you, and that question of that is that you don't physically start attacking. You ignore that and you put up barriers. Talk to the hand. You put up barriers and let them do damage to themselves, right? Or you identify, like I just did, when you're going down that road that you're getting too much attention from algorithms and AI bots that are paying attention to every word that you say, and you move away from that category of speaking, and all of a sudden your internet is back to normal. All right, let's continue with the law of one.
Ra, I am Ra. Consider, if you will, that you have no ability not to serve the Creator, since all is the Creator. In your individual growth patterns appear the basic third density choice. Further, there are overlaid memories of the positive polarizations of your home density. Thus your particular orientation is strongly polarized towards service to others and has attained wisdom as well as compassion. You do not have merely two opposite requests for service. You will find an infinite array of contradictory requests for information or lack of information from this source if you listen carefully to those whose voices you may hear. This is all one voice to which you resonate upon a certain frequency. This frequency determines your choice of service to the one Creator. As it happens, this group's vibratory patterns and those of Ra are compatible and enable us to speak through this instrument with your support. This is a function of free will. A portion, seemingly, of the Creator rejoices at your choice to question us regarding the evolution of spirit. A seemingly separate portion would wish for multitudinous answers to a great range of queries of a specific nature. Another seemingly separate group of your peoples would wish this correspondence through this instrument to cease, feeling it to be of a negative nature. Upon the many other planes of existence there are those whose every fiber rejoices at your service, and those such as the entity of whom you have been speaking which wish only to terminate the life upon the third density plane of this instrument. All are the Creator. There is one vast panoply of biases and distortions, colors, and hues, in an unending pattern. In the case of those with whom you, as entities and as a group, are not in resonance, you wish them love, light, peace, joy, and bid them well. No more than this can you do for your portion of the Creator, as it is in your experience and offering of experience. To be valuable, needs be more and more a perfect representation of who you truly are. Could you, then, serve a negative entity by offering the instrument's life? It is unlikely that you would find this a true service. Thus you may see in many cases the loving balance being achieved, the love being offered, light being sent, and the service of the service to self-oriented entity gratefully acknowledged while being rejected as not being useful in your journey at this time. Thus you serve one Creator without paradox. 67.12 Questioner.
Right, and so it's kind of apropos, Rick, that you had said that, right, as Ra was basically stating that. So as long as you are upright yourself and serving the Creator from that place of the heart, that sets up barriers in and of itself just by you being who you are. And so Rick said, I believe that my energy is that strong. If bad comes, right, I put it back up on the screen here. If bad comes, it bounces off of me and goes back to like an opposing magnet. Well, you set those things up about yourself, and if you're consciously aware of that and you have that thought process like you do, Rick, you're already putting those barriers up just by thinking that, because your whole, that entire sentence that you just stated is reflect. That whatever they come at me with, they're going to reflect back onto them like a magnet, pushing them back away. That's the perfect mindset to have, because that thought process in your mind, that you have that a thought process constantly, you're putting those barriers up. All right, I got to go and run in and turn on a light in the living room. I have two on because I have the Christmas tree in there and the one lamp, but I got to close one curtain that the tree is not in that window, and turn on the lamp on that side of the room. I'll be right back. I'll let Raw play. So and then I'll come right back. But if you have any questions, just type it in there. I'll be right back.
This particular entity is able to create, with its service, a dizzying effect on the instrument. Could you describe the mechanics of such a service? Ra, I am Ra. This instrument, in the small times of its incarnation, had the distortion in the area of the otic complex of many infections which caused great difficulties at this small age, as you would call it. The scars of these distortions remain, and indeed that which you call the sinus system remains distorted. Thus the entity works with these distortions to produce a loss of the balance and a slight lack of ability to use the optic apparatus. 67.13 Questioner: I was wondering about the magical, shall I say, principles behind the fifth density entity giving this service and his ability to give it. Why is he able to utilize these particular physical distortions from a philosophical or magical point of view? Ra, I am Ra. This entity is able to, shall we say, penetrate in time/space configuration the field of this particular entity. It has moved through the quarantine without any vehicle and thus has been more able to escape detection by the net of the guardians. This is the great virtue of the magical working whereby consciousness is sent forth essentially without vehicle as light. The light would work instantly upon an untuned individual by suggestion, that is the stepping out in front of the traffic because the suggestion is that there is no traffic. This entity, as each in this group, is enough disciplined in the ways of love and light that it is not suggestible to any great extent. However, there is a predisposition of the physical complex which this entity is making maximal use of as regards the instrument, hoping for instance, by means of increasing dizziness, to cause the instrument to fall or to indeed walk in front of your traffic because of impaired vision. The magical principles, shall we say, may be loosely translated into your system of magic whereby symbols are used and traced and visualized in order to develop the power of the light. 67.14.
Okay, before we go on to that, like with Reiki, if you're a Reiki practitioner, you should have had the Reiki symbols that your teacher would have given you and had you learn how to draw and then learn how to manifest those in your mind's eye to be able to then manifest the energy of those different symbols. So people, when they hear that word magic, they automatically go, oh, that must be Satanism, because that's what the churches teach you about anything that is manifest from you or by you, because they don't want you doing that. And they try to discourage people from self-manifestation of any kind. And so anything that you're trying to do to better yourself, including your own spiritual ascension, they don't want you to do without that, because they're teaching you in almost every religion, wait here, God's coming back in a bus to come get you. Just wait here, you'll be rewarded in the afterlife. Do what I tell you to do in the physical and you'll get all kinds of rewards later when you die. That's what they teach everybody, because they want to use you while you're here, but they also want to keep you here. They don't want to have you learn any spirituality. It's the same scenario, the same dialectic that's going on with the pharmaceutical companies and the health industry around the world. They don't want to do it. They make too much money. There is no money in a cure. They don't want to cure anything. They don't want to get you healthy. They want you to keep you sick, so you have to keep coming back. So you have to keep paying them money so they can keep giving you drugs so that you can be addicted to those drugs so that you will continue for the rest of your life on those drugs, because that makes money for them. It sustains their ability. They're not a non-profit. They're a for-profit. Okay? They're making money. And that's what they want to do. So they're selling you a product, and the product is you and bad health. That's what they're selling. So that's the same dynamic. And did you notice the Matrix reference to that in the spiritual mindset that Ra was talking about? In the spiritual mindset, it's like walking out into oncoming traffic, knowing that there is no traffic. Okay. That's a Matrix reference that happened, 10 years before the Matrix movie was ever invented, right? I am the spoon. You think that's air you're breathing, right? So it's literally, Ra was already ahead of the game talking about this reality, this illusion. That's why Ra never references this third dimensional place as anything other than this illusion, your illusion, okay? Because this is not. It's not happening. It just thinks it's happening. Okay? This isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. This is an illusion. You just think that it's real because it's supposed to. Its function is to make you believe that it is real, because it's a test for babies. It's a baby soul test. You're supposed to be able to overcome this. But the problem is that evil people are aware of that. They got aware of the Matrix itself, and then they're controlling that and not allowing you. They're taking right in front of your eyes that knowledge that's right there in front of you. They're just not letting you see it by distracting you. The second you look at something and go, what is that? They step in front of you and go, hey, look at me. Look at me. Here's my boobs. Here's my butt. Look at me. Look over here. Look over there. Look over here. Don't look here. There's nothing to see here. Look over here. What are you doing? You want clicks and likes, and these aren't the droids you're looking for. You don't need to see their identification. they can go about their business. Move along. And that's what they do to us in everything. They discourage you from, first of all, saying something. I was talking about a certain topic, and I was being discouraged by the matrix itself, by the internet, by my internet latency went down. And if you don't believe that it happens, how about I get back on the subject and start talking and saying the same words over and over again so that all of a sudden the same thing happens again. Hasn't happened since. We've been like 5 to 10 minutes. I haven't had a problem. I'll bet you if I start talking about COVID again and start going down that within less than 5 minutes, it's going to all of a sudden drop down to my latency again. Okay. So you have to realize that. Right. Well, you know what? Church is, in my book, I put a quote in there that is mine that I couldn't believe nobody ever said yet. Religion recruits you, spirituality waits for you to find it. Every single religion that is out there originally was a spiritual practice in a spiritual way. And it was all telling you the exact same thing, being told by different people at different places around the earth at different times. But it was the exact same knowledge. And then people, humans, got in control of that and made it an organized religion. And then evil people got control of those organized religions and corrupted them. So now they're a Starbucks or a Walmart or a Target or a McDonald's. Okay, they're just a corporation that is out there with trying to put as many asses in their seat as they can possibly do to get people to give them money so they can conquer the planet. Okay. But if you go there and you don't get indoctrinated and get lost in their distractions, and you actually read that Bible for whatever whatever governing body is, whatever that religion is, you read that tome without their knowledge, you'll gain and see the knowledge that from the people in the past. They've tried to take that information out, but there were so many in all the pages that are left in, even the Christian Bible, the Old Testament in the Christian Bible, the Hebrews will tell you that's Old Testament light. It's been changed. So it's not what even though the Christians claim it is the Hebrew doctrine, the Hebrews are like, nope, it used to be. And you guys have changed that. They've taken out more books from the modern Christian Bible than are left in. Okay. And they've done this to all religions. So they've tried to take out the ones they understood the message. They ripped those out, and they had to leave in something. So they left in the ones that were all cryptic that they didn't even understand. Well, if you're paying attention to those ones, you'll actually understand that they said the same things as the books they ripped out. It's still there. So if you don't just only go to church, if you only go to church, it's the same as only getting your news from legacy news media. You're only going to get what they want you to know. So if you only go to church and that's all you get of spirituality, you're only going to get what they teach you. And they're not teaching you anything other than keep coming here. Keep coming back here and we'll take care of you. But they're not doing anything. They're not teaching you anything. They're just making you feel good and telling you have to have a better relationship with God. Well, how much of a relationship can I have with God if I've dedicated myself to God and I love God? Well, then you should come to work for us and be one of us. That's the ultimate dedication. That's all they will tell you. Then you need to come here. And then, so what they're doing is they're making more people to propagate the church itself so they can expand. They're not teaching anybody how to get to heaven. They're not teaching anybody how to ascend. They're not teaching any of that. Do you see? So I don't go to church either. And I have 4 titles in 4 different religions. But I don't go to church either. Okay. Because it's a joke. And the churches don't like that I say that, because they're trying to put asses in the seat. If they were truly in service to others, they would be doing the same thing. And they would be saying, we need to let people figure out for themselves. And they would trust that people will figure it out. If they have questions, they're going to come to us. So we should be here for when they ask the questions. So when they seek out answers, we'll be here to help them. That's not what they do. They teach you, listen to me. I'm going to tell you what's going on. And that's all you need to know. Okay. So that's do as I say, not as I do. It's the same thing, right? So you have to realize that that's what Ra was warning about. Ra was warning the same thing that Jesus was warning, and Muhammad was warning, and Moses was warning, and all these people in all these religions were warning. It was they're all warning the same thing. And then their spiritual way was turned into an orthodox religion. And then they added all kinds of laws that would benefit them. Sound familiar? The same thing that goes on everywhere when evil people get in charge of it. Okay. So yeah, Peter said they're teaching the dogma, nothing else. That's right. They're not teaching you what the original ascended master was teaching you. Like if you're a Christian, they're not teaching you what Jesus was teaching you. They quote him, but do they read you Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John from cover to cover? No, they don't. They don't even cover it all in their sermons in a 2-year, a 3-year, or a 5-year time period. If you go and read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you're going to find I've never heard a priest tell me this before. Then you go ask the priest, that's when they'll answer your questions. Most of the time they'll be like, well, why are you reading this entire Bible on your own? Well, that's good, but you should also make sure that you come here when you have questions, because you'll get the wrong idea. I was told the same thing when I was in high school, and I wasn't going to a Christian school. I was going to public school. And the teachers, when I said to the teacher, listen, I'm tired of waiting for everybody to catch up. Can I just go forward in the book and learn this stuff myself? The teachers, no, unequivocally, you cannot do that. You're going to learn it wrong. I'm like, well, really, you teach us from the book. And the book tells us and gives us examples, and that's all you teach us. You're not telling me something that's not in the book. So if I read the book, which is what you have us do anyway when we're in class, then I should be able to figure out exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, because that's your curriculum that you teach us from. You don't say, here, read this passage and then interpret that for me. You just write it down on the board, which is exactly what's on the board in the book. And then sometimes you give another example, but it's still the same math that's in the book. So what is it that I'm going to learn differently from the book if you're not guiding me? And then I got mad. They got mad at me and told me I couldn't do that. So I said, okay, you're right. I won't do that. Then I went home and did it anyways and just lied to them. Okay. I did the same thing with the Bibles and church. I did the same thing. Raise my hand. Can I read ahead on my own? No, you got to stay within our curriculum. Otherwise, you're going to get the wrong idea. And I went, okay. And in my mind, I was like, that's exactly what the math teacher told me and the English teacher and everybody else. But I have found that when I've gone ahead on my own and I've read this stuff on my own, that when I then sit in class and the teacher's teaching it, I'm like, yep, that's exactly what the book said. Yep, I get it. So I was doing okay on my own. But there is some truth to that, where people will try to interpret things and they will interpret some things wrong. So there is some truth. So you still need guidance. But to stifle people, anyone who is telling you that you should not ever read anything or do or study something without them being in control of you, you should unequivocally, absolutely 187% of the time, lie to them if you have to, but ignore their ass. Because if anybody tells you that they know better than you do, or they know more than you do, or they know what's good for you, that person does not at all, period, have your best interest at heart. At all. That person is trying to control you. I don't care if it's your mom, your dad, anybody. If they say, you do what I tell you to do, that's a control mechanism. I'm not saying fight against and rebel against your parents out there to the world and start, but you need to question everything. You need to let them think that, okay, I'm not going to do that. And you never let them know that you're not. But then you read these things, unless you're doing something like, can I drink alcohol? Well, you're doing it. And okay, you're right, I won't. Then you go sneak and do alcohol. If you're doing anything that's going to do damage to yourself, then listen to society and people. Don't break laws, don't murder, don't steal, don't kill people, don't do drugs, don't, you know what I mean? But if you're like, this is a holy book, can I just read this? No. Oh, all right, read it anyways. Just don't tell them you're doing it. And check what they're teaching you and what they're not. And then you're going to find that you're going to have questions. And if you have questions and you ask that person, they're going to go, you're reading that book on your own, aren't you? Why are you so against me reading this and having questions? Well, because you're getting the wrong idea. No, I'm not. I asked you a question. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Anyone who's in service to others, they're not going to discourage you from learning knowledge on your own. What they might try to do is say, be careful because you might get the wrong idea. So please do that. But when you have questions, please come here so that I can answer those questions, or find someone else that you like that might be, because otherwise you can get indoctrinated if you're not careful, because people write things in a way to indoctrinate people. And then other people will come to you and try to indoctrinate you to get you to do something stupid like blow yourself up or kill people in religion, in the name of that religion. So you have to be aware of that as well. This is what Ra is warning about. Overall, it's the modus operandi. Dale, welcome. Did you already say welcome to you? I did earlier when you talked, right? Our journey is one of growth. It's supposed to be, right? Let's put this up on the screen. I agree with you. Our journey is one of growth, evolution, and transformation. Absolutely, it's supposed to be that, 100%. And they try to stifle us from that. And then he says, right, he goes on to reincarnate in this realm to learn, to love, and to liberate ourselves from the shackles of fear and ego. With each life, we're represented with the opportunities, or presented with the opportunities, to choose love over fear, compassion over judgment, and unity over separation. Well, in yes and no. You're absolutely right. All of that coming from the standpoint of being in service to others. There's also the other side of that coin, which I won't get too involved in because I don't try to encourage people to be in service to self, right? But ultimately, that the entire purpose of this is for you to become self-aware. Then you start as a human on this planet. Then your job is to overcome the ego, this matrix, the ego that is this matrix. There's two things that are happening in all of this illusion at all times. You have this matrix is supposed to please us. So it's going to give us what we're looking for. We are the co-creators of our reality in this place, which is in fact an illusion. So if you live in the bottom three chakras and you live in the flesh and you're in service to self, it is going to service that for you, this place. If you then try to move into the upper three chakras in the spiritual, this place will also service that for you. So this place is proverbially and then ultimately heaven and hell at the exact same time, because whatever you make of this place is what it gives you. Okay? So you're supposed to overcome the baser instincts of the lower three chakras and ascend and graduate away from that through the heart chakra, the love. And if you're supposed to choose whether you're in love with yourself or in love with everyone, if you're in love with yourself, you're only going to be self-serving, and everything you do is going to stay in the lower three chakras. If you are in service to others, everything you're going to be doing is going to be, well, I got to take care of myself, but I also want to help people. And you then move into that, and that pulls you up into the higher spiritual sense of this illusion. So ultimately, you're supposed to graduate exactly what Dale is saying. You're supposed to fend for yourself, learn these things on the growth, the evolution, the transformation, just like Dale was saying. You're supposed to learn those things and stop listening to the ego and listen to the conscience. The devil on the left shoulder is the ego. The angel on the right shoulder is the conscience. And if you're in service to others, you listen to your conscience and you do good deeds and you don't do bad things because you don't want to be that way and be mean to people. What if if somebody did that to me, I wouldn't like that. I don't want to do that, so I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't steal. I shouldn't rape. I shouldn't pillage. I shouldn't rip people off. I shouldn't lie, and all of those things that you know are wrong. Your conscience will say, don't do them. Unless you're self-serving, then it's like, fuck that guy, do whatever you want. And that's why the Satanists and the evil people took from all of the good people who said, do what thou wilt, but harm none. And they say, do what thou wilt. Do whatever you want, because these people are here specifically for you to do what you want to them. That's the self-serving attitude. So you're supposed to, if you're in service to others, overcome that self-serving attitude within yourself. That's the dichotomy between good and evil that is going on within you. That's the God and the devil on the mountaintops vying for control. It's not for the control of the entire human race. Evil people are trying to vie for control of the entire race, of the human race. Good people are not. They're not trying. There's no war to where good people are supposed to be fighting against evil people. All good people have to do is go, no. And evil people can't continue. They have to physically subjugate you, physically dominate you, and physically torture you into submission Otherwise, they can't do anything about it. So they have to create fear in you and make you believe that they're stronger than you, and so that they can dominate you. Because if you don't believe them, if everybody around the world looks at the government and the government says, you will do this or we will kill you, and we go, yeah, no. What are you going to do about it again? We're in charge of you. There's 8 billion of us, and there's only 100 million politicians on the face of the earth, and there's less than that in military. So the truth is, what are you going to do then? Like blow up the entire planet to prove your point? You won't be able to live here either. Okay. When it comes right down to that, they're not going to shit where they sleep. They're not going to blow up the entire planet unless they have a breakaway society where they can, and then they'll try to do it. Well, they've tried to do that back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. They tried to blow up the world topside because they do have underground bases and cities and off-world. Whether you believe that or not doesn't matter. And that was stopped, okay, by the coalitions from space. That's why all of a sudden in like 1997, there was no more talk about nuclear weapons. There was no more talk about nuclear war. It got quiet. Oh, we were just brokered peace. No, we didn't. There was war breaking out everywhere. But nobody was threatening nuclear war when there was a war that broke out. It was all conventional, and nobody was saying that until 2016, 2017. All of a sudden, you started hearing that talk again because there was no nuclear weapons on this earth that were active and that could work. They had to manufacture new ones in secret all over again, and now they're back. And so now you hear that threat. Russia's over there saber-rattling to the Ukrainians, and the Europeans are saber-rattling, and America's saber-rattling, and China's saber-rattling, and they're all going, look out, I'll nuke you. All that talk disappeared for like 25 years. Why? Because there wasn't any. Okay? Because there wasn't any. All right? But truly, this is a test, not of the emergency broadcast system. If you're an American, you just laughed at that. Truly, this is a test for the baby soul, and your job is to overcome the mounting life of the flesh. You're supposed to overcome that. You're supposed to move into the spiritual. Unless you're in service to self, then this place is perfect for you right now the way it is. All you have to do is find your place and your power, your clicks, likes, fame, money, and all of that control. Right? Do what you need to do to gain that. Just know that there's always going to be somebody eviler than you that's going to rape your butt. Okay? They're going to force you to be pimped out to all their friends and to them for you to get that little seat at the little baby table. So they'll throw a bone at you because they're making sure that they stay in power and that you will never have any control or power. You will never be as evil as them, and they'll kill you if you try to be that evil. So you just got to accept what you can get, and you can claw yourself if you're really deviant. Like P. Diddy or a few other people, right? Epstein. If you're really evil, you can claw your way into that and get leverage over these other people as they come up and take some of that power. But eventually, if you get too big for your britches, guess what they do? They Epstein your ass, or they P. Diddy your ass. They topple you, and they take it all away from you, and you have no say. Because then you just piss somebody off that you shouldn't have. And then they get rid of you. Okay? So you can either live in that reality, which is hell, or you can be in service to others despite them and live in the other reality and help people. You're supposed to, if you want to graduate, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to move into that realm and figure this place out. Usually takes 7 to 10 lifetimes to figure that out, whether you believe in reincarnation or not. It takes 7 to 10 lifetimes on average, normally on this planet. Different planets are different dynamics. On this earth, 7 to 10 lifetimes is what the average has been until the evil people got control of this matrix and made it harder for anybody to graduate. Okay? Then it's become almost impossible. And that's why some of us are here, to restore that balance. We're here to fix that in the timeline and restore the balance. The evil people ran from us when we got here. They're already gone. The residual, the echo of the damage they did when they were here is what we're fighting against now. Okay? We're fixing it. Whether you believe me or not doesn't matter. Honestly, we're doing that because that's what we came here. Some of you around the world listening to this are going to hear that and you're going to go, I fucking knew it, right? Because it resonates with you. Because 68% of the current population of this planet are not here in third dimension for the first time. And I don't mean, well, yeah, of course, because I'm on my 7th life. That's not what I mean. 68% of the population of this earth currently have already gone through this scenario and graduated a long time ago. And they've come back here to help. So there's a good possibility, a 68% possibility that every person who hears me speaking these words, 68% of you, guaranteed, are here to help. If you're still listening to me and you're this far in, which is 2 hours and 25 minutes in, there's a 100% chance, unless you just tuned in. If you've been here for more than 20 minutes, there's a good possibility that, unless you're just like, well, I haven't made up my mind yet, and I'm about to be out of here if this guy doesn't shut up. But if you listen to the things that I've said and you're still listening to me going, what if this guy's right? There's almost a 100% possibility that you actually, whether you know it or not, whether you're awake enough or not, and unveiled enough not to know, you're here to help. Population of this earth in 1981 was 2.7 billion. 40 years later, in 2021, 8 billion people. Okay. Where did they all come from? All right, let's continue with Rob.
Questioner, do you mean then that this fifth density entity visualizes certain symbols? I am assuming that these symbols are of a nature where their continued use would have some power or charge. Am I correct? Ra, I am Ra. You are correct. In fifth density, light is as visible a tool as your pencil's writing. 67.15 Questioner, then am I correct in assuming this entity configures the light into symbology, that is what we would call a physical presence? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The light is used to create a sufficient purity of environment for the entity to place its consciousness in a carefully created light vehicle, which then uses the tools of light to do its working. The will and presence are those of the entity doing the working. 67.16 Questioner, are you familiar with a book?
I joke about that all the time, right? Penny says, I must have been high that day on shrooms or something and said, go where? What the heck? Why not? I always joke about that all the time. I say, I must have been drunk. And they were going, anybody want to volunteer to literally descend into human form in the third dimension, be inserted into a body and be completely veiled and not know why you're there, but you're there to help people, and you may never know it because they're stuck, and you may not ever actually wake up to understand why you're there. Anybody want to do that? And I always go, I must have been really drunk, because I would raise my hand and went, yeah, should we all go pack now? That's a great idea. That's why I love that they did that in Eric the Viking. When they said, when Thorfinn and Sven were fighting, and Sven was mad and said, no, it was Snorri, I don't remember who it was mad because Thorfinn said his dad died of old age. I think it was Sven. And he said, yeah, he must kill me. And he said, no, you guys got to stop doing this, Eric the Viking. And he said, what, they were like, oh, come on, Eric, they got to fight to the death, right? And he was like, no, I have a better proposal. And they were like, all right, what? And he's like, well, I want to get on a ship and I want to sail over the edge of the world. And I want to cross Bifrost the Rainbow Bridge. I want to go to Valhalla, and I want to go into Valhalla, and I want to wake up the gods. And we might all die on the way there. And even if we get there and do that, the gods might get angry with us and kill us, and we may never come back. And Sven's dad, or one of the guys, Snorri, one of them turns and looks at him and goes, oh, that's much more better than just Thorfinn getting killed. Should we all go pack now? I laugh, and I'm like, that was me. When somebody said that to me, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Should we all go pack? Right? I think that's hilarious. All right, let's continue with Ra. But yeah, you need to realize that if you don't already know it, you're probably going to be suspecting it. But if you were literally, if you're still listening to what I say now and you don't think I'm absolutely insane and out of my, off my rocker and mad as a hatter, that's because what I'm saying seems to be ringing true, because you're like, or you're actually going, I fucking knew it. Let's continue here.
Book that the instrument and I wrote approximately 12 years ago called The Crucifixion of Esmeralda Sweetwater, in particular the banishing ritual used to bring the entities to Earth. Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 67.17 Questioner, were there any incorrectnesses in our writing with respect to the way this was performed? Ra, I am Ra. The incorrectnesses occurred only due to the difficulty an author would have in describing the length of training necessary to enable the ones known in that particular writing as Theodore and Pablo in the necessary disciplines. 67.18 Questioner, it has seemed to me that that book has somehow, in its entirety, been a link to many of those whom we have met since we wrote it and to many of the activities we have experienced. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is quite so. 67.19 Questioner, I will ask about that in a later session since...
All right, Joanne, you said your thoughts, Leonard, on what? Did I miss you? Did you have a question there and I missed it someplace? Or were you asking my thoughts on Ra? Or were you asking me about my thoughts on you? So and ask the question of what exactly your question was there to me. I'll try to look up in here and see if you had asked a question that I missed, because I do that sometimes. Well, I do see. Okay, I see. Agnes said, "What about pastors? What are they?" If you're talking about pastors and religions, most of them are unaware of what's going on, and they're trying to help people. But they have a curriculum. I have one of the Bibles. I just don't have it out here. I would have showed it to you. I'll have to get it. I used to pull it up and show. I have one of the Bibles. As I am a minister, I have one of the Bibles that is the curriculum Bible, and I learned when I was being knighted by the Catholic Church that they have a curriculum that most Christian churches use. And it's a 2-year, a 3-year, or a 5-year curriculum. And if in most of those, depending on the parishioners, the older parishioners won't notice even a 2-year curriculum. They won't remember what happened 2 years ago on the same day. So they won't notice the pattern. Younger people will pick up that pattern and they'll go, we already talked about this a long time ago. So that's why they do it out in that way, 3-year and 5-year, because they do the same thing every year at the exact same time, but it changes, the allegory changes. So most of the clergy is trying to help you. They're not in service to self, but you have to realize that in any room, if there's 100 people, 14 of them are in service to self. That's almost 100% positivity, because 86% of the population of this earth is in service to others, and 14%, that's the dynamic on this planet. 14% of the population is in service to self. So there's that percent in every room. So if you have, 10,000 churches in one country or 1,000 churches in one country, whatever the number is, 14% of the clergy are going to be in service to others. In service to self. And 86% are going to be in service to others. That's why you have bad people that do things to good people in every church, because there are 14% that infiltrate because they want that power and that control over people. So people that are evil seek power always. That's why government officials are mostly corrupt, because they leverage themselves into those positions of power. So when you look at government, this governmental system, that in any governmental system that allows for people to continue to get reelected instead of having complete term limits, allows and propagates and is propagated by evil people that are self-serving to be able to stay in power for longer and longer periods of time. Okay. That's why if you want to take back control of the governments around the world, then you have a free government. If they're claiming that it's free, then they should say term limits of 2 years and you can never serve again. And they'll say nothing will ever get done. They'll try to give you fear. Nothing will ever get done because people aren't there long enough. No, it'll create a scenario where if people are not doing anything, they get thrown the hell out in 2 years to get someone new in there. That's going to change the dynamic, because then people are going to be in a hurry. Because if I volunteer and I'm going to work for a governmental system and I only have 2 years, I want to leave a legacy that people are going to remember me, that I got some shit done. Because if you're going to go there for just sitting around for 2 years and get a shit measly ass pay, and you don't pay them $1 billion for doing that 2 years worth of work, evil people are not going to want to do it, because they only get 2 years and they can never serve again. So you're going to have more people in service to self getting elected if they can never come back and they can only have 2 years and they can't take a job in government after that. Okay, you go into government. You can't go like in this country, I'm going to go and be in the House, then I'm going to go and be in the Senate, then I'm going to run for president. No, you're done. 2 years and you're out. And people are good. They'll lie to you right now and they'll say nothing will get done. Nothing gets done now. And these people are in office for 50 years at a time. Nothing gets done except they get rich, the people get poorer, and all the laws have stayed the same as status quo. Think about it. Look at the history of your life in the country that you're in. If you believe you have a free government and you believe that you people are voting people in, what has changed in your government that has helped your people in your lifetime? Okay. What has changed? There'll be a handful of small things. And those you're going to find are going to be, and who wrote those bills that became laws and where are they now? You're going to find those people are not still serving. And the ones that try to take credit for it are the ones that lived off of that and claimed that they had something to do with it, but they were not the ones who started that movement. And if they are, it's just like in America. The Democrats have run on women's rights to have an abortion for the last 70 years. They haven't done anything to help them. The only thing they've done is pointed their finger at the Republicans and said they're going to steal it from you when they get in office. And every time the Republicans have got in office in 70 years, they didn't steal it from them. And they claim that Donald Trump did that in 2016. Weirdly, we still have abortions in every state in the United States. But the Democrats will claim there are some states that are not allowing people to have abortions and they're dying. And then when you say which one and show me cases, they don't have any. Okay, because if they did, they'd be all over the news. There'd be parents sitting there saying, my daughter died in Alabama because they wouldn't let her have an abortion and they wouldn't let her cross state lines. And because of that, she died. Okay, that would be all over the news. They claim it, but when you call them to it and say, show me those places where that's not happening, they say they're not allowing people to get abortions if they're raped. There is not a state in the United States that doesn't allow that to happen. Even the ones who voted that abortion is not something that can be used as contraception have allowed it for rape, incest, or the mother is going to die if they don't do something about the child. There is no state that forces you to have a child, but they claim there is. And I tell people all the time, tell me the state, show me the law. Show me the law. Don't just quote some talking point from a news channel. If the news channel says Alabama is forcing women to not get an abortion and women are dying, show me the cases of the women that are dying because they should be there somewhere. Okay. And no one can, because if they did, it would be all over the news. Somebody gets shot at a school and they kill people at a school, and that's on the news for 5 or 6 days in a row. So why is it that they're suing Donald Trump in court to get him off of the election? Why is that on the news cycle 24 hours a day for 6 months? They claim that the Republicans are stifling people in states and not allowing women to have access to anything that has to do with self-care, and women are dying, yet the cameras aren't there filming it. The cameras aren't there talking to the family members. The lawyers aren't in court talking about it, suing those people over it. They're not representing this person who's dead, and that's nowhere in the news. Why not? If they're telling you that it's happening, why are they not covering it? Why are they not showing it to you? They keep claiming something's happening, but they're not showing it to you. Why? See, these are the questions you need to ask. What is it that these people are doing that they claim they're doing to help you? And what has changed that has made your life better in all of these years? You're going to find that they keep promising and never deliver. They promise you the moon when it's an election cycle, and then they get in office and they don't do any of it. They tell you, we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. Oops, I'm out of office. And the next person says, he didn't fix it, but I will. Vote me in office and I'll fix it. He didn't fix it because he's a moron. He's out of here. I'm the new guy. Hire me and I'll fix it. And then we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. The other guys, the evil ones, are stopping us. But yet, if you actually watch here in this country, everything that goes on in the House and the Senate is broadcast on television. They have to broadcast it live. No one wants to watch that because it's boring. It's not a 1 hour show where there's love and lost and blows and dynamite and explosions and action and jet fighters, and the good guys win and ride off into the sunset in 1 hour. So no one wants to sit there and watch that stuff. I do. I sit there and watch it. Or I put it on where I can hear it in my ear and I listen. They're voting. I'm going to come back and check and see if the vote went through. Okay? I pay attention to what those people are saying. There's a lot of people that do. And that's why they have to keep putting it up there, because some of us watch it. If you watch the news, they always show it to you. Here's the people in the House voting. That's the C-SPAN channel in America where you can watch that on your own. Okay, they tap into that because that's on there, on them all the time. So then you can hear what they're actually saying and what they're actually voting. And you can know what's really going on, and they can't spin it because it's live and you're watching the people say yay or nay. And you can write down the person's name who claimed to you that they're for it and voted against it. Okay. I don't know if it's that way in all countries, but in the United States, it's that way. So you have to pay attention to what these people are claiming they're going to do for you and they're not doing, because they're not changing anything. We still have the same internal combustion engine for over 120 years. Nothing has changed. Yet I have a smartphone that could steal the space shuttle. I have a smartphone that could have changed the course of history. If I go back into time in 1969, I could take control of the rockets with my smartphone. I could go with a calculator on my smartphone. I could take a hold of the rocket in 1968, 1972, going to the moon. So why is it that we have the same rocket engine that we still were using then with no new technology? And why do we have the same car that Ford was selling us when he started selling the Model T and the Model A? There's no difference. The only difference is we have better doors and windows now. So where's the technology? Where's the upgrades? There isn't any. It's status quo. There is no upgrades. The upgrades are everything that is made to distract us. Television, internet, cell phones. They're made to distract you. But they didn't give you any other upgrades, whatever it is. You see my point? So this is what Raw is warning about. The status quo is distracting you so much that you don't see that they're not doing anything for you, but they plan on it and they tell you they're gonna. They tell you the other people are going to take it away from you. And then when the other people do get into power, they tell you they're working on it. They're working on it. They're going to take it from you. They're going to take it from you. And then they get out of office and they didn't take it from you. And then they say, well, that's because we stopped them. That's because we stopped them. So you need to vote me in so that we can fix it. And then you vote them in and they don't fix it. And then they go, oh, but it's because they're stopping me. So each side says, I didn't get it done because they keep stopping me. And then you vote for the other guy and he gets in and can't get it done and says the other guy tried to stop him. And that's why he didn't get it done. Then the other guy says, I'll fix it. You vote him in. And so is it that the resistance is stronger no matter who you're voting for? Then you should be voting the opposite of what you think you should be voting for every single time, because that's the one who's winning every time. The opposite. But you're going to find that no matter who you vote for, they're always going to say the other party stopped them from doing it. And neither party's actually getting anything done. Now, as it is, status quo, they're getting rich. They're not doing anything they're claiming that they're going to do. And then you vote them out of office and you get some new guys in who do the same thing. I've watched this happen since I was a child in this country, and I've watched them do it over and over and over. Every politician on both sides of the aisle has claimed, we're the new guys. We're the next generation. We're going to get it done. Vote for us and get those old guys out of there. You vote for the new guys, and they stay in office until they're the old guys. And then new guys come in and say, get rid of those old guys. We're the new guys. We're going to get it done. And they never get anything done. And they just propagate the same scenario. And you get older and you keep voting, or you stop voting because you realize they're not getting anything done and you're not changing the system. And that's what they hope you do. You go through your life, you never change the system, you get disheartened and you stop voting. They get the next group of young kids to come up and vote. And then they don't do anything. And before they get tired of it and actually make changes, they vote them out of office and nothing happens. And then they get tired of it and stop voting, or they keep beating their head against the same wall. This is what has been happening over and over and over. That's changing now. That's changing now. Okay. Peter Coyle, welcome. We've had no democracy in Ireland for 35 years, roughly, because when they sold out to the European Ireland, excuse me, Ireland answers to the European Union, right? Yeah, because once you join the European Union, then you answer to the European Union. Ireland answers the European Union. That's the fact the European Union chooses the government That's exactly what happens, unfortunately, right? Although looking after yourself is important, this is Joanne saying this, too, it's 50% self, 50% others. Try not to deplete yourself by being too serving to others, right? You got to watch out for that. There's a balance. Is if you don't look after yourself, you won't be there to look after others. Yes, agreed. You have to learn the balance of, because most people, when they become too in service to others, they forget about the self and they go all in a relationship or the world, and they don't take care. There's no due self-care, and they don't take care of themselves, and they deplete themselves and sometimes wreck themselves, and then they can't anymore because they've done so much damage to themselves that now they have to back away from everything and take care of themselves. And usually what happens is people get disillusioned and don't want to help anybody anymore, because every time I try to help people, I end up not getting anything for it. So you have to take care of yourself and take care of others and try to find that balance, is what Joanne is saying, to be able to help people and also help yourself, so that because self-serving people aren't going to help you. And most people get tired of trying to help people, and they just want to put their head down. And so therefore they're trying to work within the system, which is corrupted, like most nurses and doctors, or just like most clergy. They want to help, but 14% of all nurses are going to be evil. 14% of all doctors are going to be evil. 14% of all clergy are going to be evil. That's the dynamic on this planet. You just don't know which that 14% is. And it may not necessarily be that way. So if you go to a church, you can't assume one of these clergymen or women is going to be the evil one. You have to pay attention to their actions and what they say, and see their personality. You'll learn it. If you learn what to look for, you can identify those traits in people and realize if they're just selling you the curriculum, they're either indoctrinated completely and veiled completely, in which case they're not going to benefit you, or they're aware of it and they're not going to tell you. Either way, you have to, at that point, assume they're compromised in one way or the other. They're either in service to self, or they're completely indoctrinated by the system itself, and they're just doing the curriculum because they believe in it. It's not their fault. You can't get mad at them and assume they're evil. You have to learn that and as to how to identify people as good or evil, self-serving or serving of others, so that whether they're narcissistic or not. You have to learn that. That's what Jesus was trying to teach you. That's what all these people throughout history were trying to teach you. How to identify these people. How to identify them and realize and see them for who they are. That's piercing the veil. That's the realization of the first step of avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. You have to know there is a trap. You have to know that there are people who are trying to spring the trap on you, to identify them. Do you see? And then once you start knowing there's a trap, it's easier to identify the people who are planting the traps and trying to close the trap. Once you start doing that for yourself, it becomes a lot easier. Life becomes a lot easier for you to figure all that stuff out. All right, let's continue. I'm going to have to go here soon.
I don't want to get off the track because it has something to do with the mechanics of time, which I am very puzzled about. But I would ask then, the fifth density entity in coming here to offer us services you mentioned penetrated the quarantine. Was this done through one of the windows, or was this because of his, shall I say, magical ability? Ra, I am Ra. This was done through a very slight window which less magically oriented entities or groups could not have used to advantage. 67.20 questioner.
All right, we might as well just stop there then, right? So Sherry, she says, I haven't and probably won't get the balance. I'm always depleted and have to recluse for a long while. Yeah, you have to learn the balance. You just have to do it. Some people, you have to let them tread water for a while. You have to allow, instead of helicopter momming everybody around you, you have to allow them to grow. Sometimes that means that you don't pick the kids up when they fall down. If they're not seriously injured, you got to have a little bit of tough love. You're fine. Get up. You're fine. Go back out and play. You're not bleeding. Nothing's broken. You have to do that. You have to do that with adults too, right? Sometimes you have to not answer them and allow them to, even if they're going to get mad at you. Because if people will get dependent on you making decisions for them, or always being there for them, and they'll take advantage of that, and they'll stop doing anything because you do it for them. Do you see? So you have to teach people, specifically children, to start to stand up for themselves. This is why I always say this, and this is why I am the type of person that I am. And this is why I say this when people are say watching me and trying to decide whether I'm a good person to follow or not. I say, don't believe I am. Don't believe I am, and look around at the world, right? If Cassie were here, she would tell you. I said to Cassie years ago, I was doing producing a live with Jacqueline, who, if you were there on Wednesday, Jacqueline popped in on Wednesday, so you got to see Jacqueline Taylor, which she hasn't been around for a while. So you were able to, if you didn't know who she was and you were there on Wednesday, you got to see a rare thing with Jacqueline. And we're going to be doing a show on the solstice, right after the solstice, on the 20. What is that Sunday? Hold on, I'm going to pull it up on my phone because I don't have it ready to pull up in here, or I would show it to you. So let me pull it up on my phone here, and I'll tell you the date. We're going to be doing it's on the 29th if you're in the United States, the 29th of December. If you're in Australia, it'll be on the 30th in the morning. And it's going to be at 11 a.m. West Coast America time on the 29th, which is a Sunday. And I'm going to help her produce that and be there with her, and Cassie's going to help. And so you'll get to be exposed to Jacqueline Taylor if you want. And but Jacqueline and I were producing a Earth Day event that we were doing, and I had Cassie come on, and it was her first time being on the air, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do," and I'm like, "You'll be fine. You just do this." Cassie wasn't completely awake yet, and so she didn't know who I was. But Peter Coyle, who's here in the audience, and I think Peter GV might have been there that day. They saw her for who she was and realized that she was somebody more than she realized. And I said to her, "We're going to be working together in the future." And she was like, "Okay." And then, she was gone, and I just assumed that I scared her off, and I don't chase anybody. So I just kept doing what I was doing. She told me that she was still watching me in the background. It took her for a year because she didn't trust. And she was like, his true colors are going to come out. Eventually, he's going to cross that line somewhere, and I'm going to catch him. And after a year, she was like, maybe he's legit, right? That's weird, right? So that's why I'd never defend myself. That's why I don't do those things. And that's why I talk the way I do, and I don't require anyone to do anything. The only thing I require you to do is to start thinking for yourself. In fact, I encourage it. I don't want you to become addicted to me as your guru so that you will only ask me questions for the rest of your life. Most people in this industry will try to leverage you into a place where you're addicted to them because they want the power, the money, the fame, something from you. I'm trying to make me out of you. I'm trying to make you like me because I was made like someone else. I'm not trying to make you me because you're an individual, but I'm trying to make you like me. And what is that? This is where Jesus said the way to heaven is through me. What he meant by that was through the way that I'm teaching you. You have to find the path on your own because you're an individual. But I can tell you, I can show you the door and give you the keys to that door. How you get those keys from me and how you get to that door and how you unlock it and when is completely up to you. And that is what he meant by that. That is in the tradition of the way I was taught, in the tradition of the way I teach, is I want to get you to think for yourself and ask questions, even of me. I don't want you to trust that I am the only one who has these, and I will never, ever state that I am the only one that has the answers. Because the second I do that is when I'm lying to you and myself if I believe that about myself. And anyone who says that to you or comes across that way and demands something of you and demands that you do this or that or this or that, or never encourages you to go out on your own and does not encourage you to listen to other people, or who talk shit about other people. Don't listen to that person because of this or because of that. Those people are not as awake as they claim to be, because if they were, then they would love you enough, if they were truly in service to others, to allow you and encourage you to make mistakes. because you need to be able to make mistakes so that you know the difference firsthand. If I tell you what a mistake is, you're not going to truly know what that mistake is until you have it for yourself. I've seen the mistakes made, but you don't know what it means to have that happen to you until it does. So I'm not going to force you to make mistakes, but you're going to make mistakes because we all do. Nobody's perfect. And there's no one in life that will never make a single mistake or doubt themselves. Even Jesus, if you're a Christian, doubted himself. Okay, and he's the Savior. Okay, even Moses doubted himself, and he was the Savior. Even Muhammad doubted himself, and he was the Savior. Even David, the king of the Hebrews, doubted himself, and he was the Savior of the Hebrews. Okay, so I don't care who your deity figure is in the religion that you were brought up on. If that prophet was a true prophet, then just like Herger said to Ahmed in the 13th Warrior, a true prophet demands nothing. Okay. And that was his advice to Herger's advice, who was a Viking, giving an advice to Ahmed, who was the Arab who was there, who was the 13th Warrior, that was in the Beowulf saga. The man who wrote down the story of Beowulf. The only reason we still have the saga of Beowulf, because Ahmed ibn Fahlan, ibn Rashid, ibn al-Abbas, he wrote the story down and took it back to Arabia with him, and we found it. Westerners found it 1,000 years later and said, "What is this?" And people said, "Oh, this is a scroll of this Ahmed who went and lived with the people of the North and wrote the story down of his adventures." And they got copies of it and brought it back to the world, specifically the Vikings, and now it's for the world to know. Okay. Some say he invented it. Okay. No one will know the answer to that. And it's for you as the reader to decide for yourself whether Beowulf really existed or not. There is history over in Geatland, what used to be Geatland, that Beowulf existed there. Okay. So that corroborated this legend of this person who was there. There's the story that was written down by the guy who came there. Point of that is that all of these people still doubted themselves. Even the great people doubted themselves. Okay, so you're going to. They failed, you're going to fail. Their struggle was the same. Your struggle is going to be the same. So nobody's perfect, so you're going to have problems. You're going to fail. So you have to learn from your mistakes. Us being alive here in this place, okay, is being done this way so that we know what it means to live and die. That's what this place's function is. For us to have, that's the veiling, is the function of the veiling for us, the having the forgetting and not understanding what we are and who we are, is so that we can have an organic experience of the fear of life and death. Of I may starve to death, I may die, someone may kill me, I might drown, and I don't want to die. You don't know that you're an immortal soul until you do. Okay, and then that changes the dynamic of how you see the universe and the world. When you realize that you're an immortal soul and that you can't die, it changes and you become more fearless. You become fearless, far more fearless, because then you go, this body will die, but I will continue. But you then don't push that and say, I'm going to jump off cliffs now because I know that I'm not going to die. So you do that when you're younger anyways. And then at some point your mortality kicks in and you go, that hurts. I don't want to, that takes a long time to heal. But even when you realize that when this body dies is not the end, you still go, well, I've been in this body for a long time and I like this place, so I am going to fight to try and stay here. You have those instincts. But you also have the peace to know that this isn't the end. That is graduating into 4D thinking, to realize that. That's moving into the spiritual and understanding that you are the part of the creator. And then going beyond that is to realize that you're part of the creation. And going beyond that is to realize that you are the creator and a co-creator and the creation. And that's the part that everybody thinks is crazy down here, because most people are still in just the part of I think, therefore I am. Right? Joanne said, when I was coming out of my ascension, I woke up every morning and was asked, and then the screen scrolled up off my screen. Let's see. Every morning and asks, how may I serve? The answer I got, You will serve best when you serve yourself. Kind of, right? Yes. My angels taught me to focus on looking after me until it was time to be of service. Right. So you have to take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. Reiterating what Joanne said earlier. I think it was Joanne that said that earlier. You can't take care of others if you're not taking care of yourself, because you won't be in that place. And that's why, to be a true guide or a teacher, you have to be a learner as well. You can't think you know everything and expect that nobody can teach you anything. That's why Socrates 5,000 or 4,500 years ago said, the more you know, the more you realize that you know nothing. And that's what he said. The more I know, the more I realize I know nothing. So the more you know, the more you realize I don't know everything. And it's only ego that says, I know everything. Trust me, I'll tell you what to do. Okay, you just got to listen to me. Anybody who says that kind of stuff to you, you need to run away from them as fast as you can, because that's ego talking right there. You need to identify that. Once you start learning to identify that trap, first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence, then you will be okay with figuring things out. You see people talking like that and you go, yeah, no, I don't think so. That's that moment that Captain Kirk had when he went, I'm sorry, why does God need a starship? Right? That, if you ever saw that movie. And that's because he realized that that's not God. If that were God, he wouldn't need a starship to transport him beyond this place that we're in here. And so he questioned God, and that's when he was like, that's not God. God tried to strike him down and almost killed him. He was like, this isn't God. That was punishment for asking a question. Anybody that tries to punish you for asking a question, you should pay attention to that. If you say, wait a minute, why? And then they punish you. If you have a different opinion than they have and they punish you, I don't care what you think about them. Those people are not good. They're evil. Okay, no matter who they are. So if you're saying something on the internet and the people who own that internet, and unless you're saying I'm going to murder the entire planet and poison the whole water, then you need to be stopped. But if you're saying something like, I'm not quite sure that I want to get that shot. Why should I be getting that shot? And then they say, if you don't get the shot, we're going to arrest you or fire you, or we're going to kick you off the internet. You should be asking yourself, why has that become the most evil thing I can do? Question. Okay. Same thing when somebody says, so-and-so is going to take away your rights. Really? So if they're working on taking away my rights, then you could show me a bill that they're putting together to go through Congress, right? Well, they're suing in court. There's a court case. So what's the court case? Can you show me that? Well, when they get into office, they're going to do it because they said so. Okay, so when did they say so? Is there a video that you can link to me that I can watch them where they said that? Right? And what they'll do is they'll give you something they edited to give you like 30 seconds of something only. Well, let me see the whole raw video so I can watch 5 minutes prior and 5 minutes after that comment and see exactly the context. No, never mind. You don't need to see any of that. You just need to see this. What's your problem? Why are you questioning? Do you think I'm lying to you? As a matter of fact, yeah, I do. They don't want you to think that. Okay. All right, guys, I got to go because it's 6 o'clock. I got to get my mom up. I think she's trying to get up now. So I have to get her up and get her into the shower and then get us some dinner. Okay. So I love you guys. We'll pick up on question 20. I'll put that in my phone, knowing that we're on question 20. I'll start it back at like question 18. I always go back a couple of questions whenever I stop in mid stride. So let me find my notes here and put 67, question 18. We'll just go to 17. Okay. So we'll pick that up for next week. All right. So I love you guys. Have a great night. I'll see you guys. I didn't do a commercial for my book again. Thank you for getting to do that. It's up on my page. I'll throw it up in the groups later on tonight. And I didn't put the link in here either. All right, guys. Normally I do, but I was talking too much today and didn't put the commercial up. So I'll put it up on my Facebook page again so you guys can see it. But if you're anywhere else in the world, I didn't play it for you. That's okay. I'll do it next time. I'll see you guys either on Wednesday if you guys want to be in and ask me questions. To where I'm not just talking about the law of one. You can ask me any questions about anything in life and spirituality. I do that on a Zoom call. On a Zoom call on Wednesday. 3 p.m. West Coast America time. The link will be in the Law of One class chat on Messenger. If you're not in that, you can message me on Messenger or get a hold of me on one of the platforms that you're hearing this on. You can go to, if you're listening on MP3 broadcast and you can't get a hold of me, you can go to podbean.com. You can find my thing there and send me an email, or you can go to my YouTube channel and talk to me there, or you can find me on Facebook and talk to me there, or Messenger and talk to me there. I'm also on TikTok and I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram and YouTube, Facebook, all those places. You can find me and send a message, and then I can send it to you in Messenger or whatever on Wednesday if you need a link to get in if you want to ask questions. I do work with people as well. Oh, you can read my book. My book gives you the same information that'll get you started down that path to your own questioning and your own ascension. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys later. Have a great weekend wherever you are around the world. And I'll either, like I said, I'll see you in the chat, or I'll see you on Wednesday, or I'll see you back here on Friday. Or I know I won't see you because you only listen on the MP3 broadcast around the world and you don't get to ask me questions. But I just gave you all the places that you can find me if you have questions. All right, guys. Have a great night.